I think we'll go ahead and get started then. I'd like to call this meeting to order and welcome you to the Coeur d'Alene School District 271 Board Meeting of February 7th, 2022. If everyone would please rise and together we'll say the Pledge of Allegiance. Great. Well, I'd like to introduce ourselves this evening. So starting at my far right, we have Miss Lynn Town, Clerk of the Board, Dr. Sean Hawker, Superintendent, Mr. Casey Morrisroe, Vice Chair, Miss Leslie Bierke, Trustee Heather Tenbrink, and Trustee Allie Anderton. Down here joining us as well, we have our SAG, our Student Advisory Committee, and we'll be hearing a report from them in a little bit, so welcome. And I am Rebecca Smith, Board Chair. Public comment on district-related items is scheduled near the start of this meeting. Please sign in at the sheet provided at the entrance door. Because of the diversity of issues, members of the board will not respond to public comment made during tonight's meeting. Instead, issues may be recorded and referred to the proper staff person for follow-up. Comments may also be submitted to the board by email at trustees@cdaschools.org or in writing through the clerk. Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Well, tonight, first up, we have some board recognition and celebrations to do. And so we're going to start with our Teacher of the Month.
So sorry, I forgot my microphone. Our high school Teacher of the Month is Skylar Mance. He works as a therapeutic support teacher at Venture High School. So congratulations, Mr. Mance. We're glad to have you in our district.
Terrific. Way to go, Skylar. Another celebration that we have tonight, and I'm going to invite him up here in just a second. I want to say a few words first. For board recognition this evening, we want to celebrate Mark Tucker and his team, and Mark is the Executive Director of United Way of North Idaho. And we want to thank him and United Way for the important work that they do on behalf of our community. And so I want to mention a little bit of that before I welcome you up, Mark. United Way is a nonprofit that fights for the health, education, and financial stability of every person in North Idaho. Their mission is to improve lives by connecting our community through donations, advocacy, and volunteering. Many people know that the United Way partners with businesses in our area on payroll deductions that fund community care grants to local nonprofits. Just last month, United Way announced it's investing close to $300,000 in the work of local organizations. Not everyone's aware that United Way is also deeply involved in supporting early childhood care and education in our community. And we know how important that is to our community and how often we discuss early childhood needs. Through its regional early learning collaboratives, United Way works to offer families direct support through childcare and scholarships. They also support childcare providers by helping them afford quality improvements, health and safety compliance, educational materials and expansions. And United Way works to engage employers in adopting family-friendly policies such as childcare benefits. Last summer, United Way received a $1 million grant from the Idaho Department of Health and Welfare. The purpose is to support learning, mitigate learning loss, and offer behavioral health support for youth ages 5 to 13. Much of United Way's attention is on ways to help the region's ALICE population. ALICE is an acronym for Asset Limited, Income Constrained, Employed. Throughout North Idaho, 41% of households are in this situation, struggling to make ends meet. They include childcare workers, cashiers, food servers, and home health aides, people who earn too much to qualify for federal assistance, but not enough to cover a family's basic cost of living. They're the ones having to choose between paying for childcare or paying their rent, filling a prescription, or fixing their car. United Way does so much for our community, and so Mark, I'd like to welcome you up and celebrate. So Mark, we have here our Superstar Award to you and to your team. You do so much for our community and for our families, and so thank you. Thank you for all the ways that you change lives and the ways you invest in people daily. So thank you. Can we give Mark a round of applause?
Thank you. I just wanted to say the appreciation is mutual, especially I know as volunteers in the community. You do put up with a lot, and it's important, and we appreciate everything that you do, not only as Board of Trustees, but as educators. When we first launched our ALICE project in 2016, we looked at it from a financial stability lens, but the more we dug into it, we saw that for a family of 4, childcare was the highest expense for that family, greater than transportation, food combined. Housing still is greater than housing, which is mind-boggling when you look at the cost of housing. But we quickly realized that that childcare piece is really a wraparound issue, and the schools do so much with every aspect of a child's life, and that's what we're trying to do with early learning to help make sure that kids are ready entering school. So it affects schools, it affects employers, it really affects everybody in our community. So we appreciate the recognition, but we also applaud you for your work. So thank you.
Thank you to you. I know, me too. Okay, great. We're going to start with our high school student body reports then. And so first up, I believe we have CHS. Oh, no, we don't want to do that yet. We want to do, we're going to do board comments first. So Trustee Tenbrink.
Thank you. For a few weeks, we've had an unusually high level of staff absences in our building, and we're really grateful for all of our wonderful subs, but we just simply haven't had enough of them for the last few weeks. And this has been a real challenge in our school district. Our community wants our schools to stay open, and our district wants our schools to stay open. And we have stayed open with one small exception, and the reason we've done that is some of our teachers and other staff have put forth extraordinary efforts to make sure that we do so. I've heard reports of teachers covering other teachers' classes while also still teaching their own. I know of a front office lady who went and ended up teaching music for a few days, and I know lots of other support staff in our schools have been in a similar situation. I know we've had building administration and district administration in classrooms, trying to make sure our kids could stay in their classrooms. We've had district office staff going to our school buildings to help fill the gaps that are there. I know the bus drivers and other transportation department employees have been just filling in as much as they can to cover our routes, really going out of their way to make sure that's done. And that's the same with our nutrition staff. They've been moving between buildings on short notice just to try to make sure every school has somebody there to prepare lunch for our kids. I know there are lots more that we haven't heard about. And this is not a situation we like to be in, for sure. But I just wanted to say we're really grateful for all of our employees who have made it so we can stay in school. We recognize those efforts, and we're really grateful for them. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Tenbrink. Two other comments we wanted to just make, primarily for the community as well, just to kind of know what we've been up to the last month. We did a board training with a consultant on January 11th, and we spent time learning about a variety of topics, including Idaho Code, roles and responsibilities, open meeting law. We kind of just began discussing board norms and what that kind of looks like, and we're looking forward to additional sessions that we'll schedule as needed, but wanted the community to know that that's part of what our last month kind of entailed. Also, In October, this board approved revised trustee zone maps that met the population requirements required under Idaho code. And the State Board of Education approved our proposed revisions at their meeting, which was held in mid-January. And so thanks again to Jay Prickett, who's our systems analyst, for all of his hard work in making these adjustments. And soon those will be reflected on our website and everything as well. But wanted to let everyone know that those were approved by the state and will be pushed out to the public soon. So, great, thanks. All right. High school student body reports, lots going on. So CHS, I believe, is first.
Good evening, esteemed board chair, honorable trustees, Superintendent Hawker, district administration, and valued community members. My name is Maya Reeds, and I'm the ASB president of Coeur d'Alene High School. And also with me tonight are Ellie Morcho, our ASB vice president, Gracie Shaver, our ASB secretary, and Austin Smith, our ASB treasurer. We have had many successes the past 2 months and also events coming up that we're excited to share with you.
At the conclusion of our first semester, us Vikings are super thankful and proud of how everyone handled the first semester and keeping up our spirit and being able to do all of our events. We're very thankful. We recently concluded our All for All Giving Month with Lake City that we were able to partner with. February 4th was our distribution day, and we're so thankful that we were able to unify with Lake City and give back to our community.
I am happy to announce that our CHS Student Council has officially been given the Outstanding Student Council Award. In our February State Leadership Conference, we will be honored with this award down in Boise. Go Vikes! Additionally, our Rotary Student of the Month for February is Zoe Hart. We also have our January Kiwanis Student of the Month, Rayla Atwood, and our February Kiwanis Student of the Month, Emily Forsloff. Also in this past month, our DECA regional competition was held, in which we had many state placers. Congratulations to all of them. Additionally, for the first time in CHS history, our CHS Viking wrestlers took home the Tri-State tournament. Great job.
As far as events we have coming up soon, on February 11th we have our Midnight Masquerade Dance, which is our last dance for underclassmen to go to, so we're really excited. And we're going to be selling tickets this week, all week, during both lunches. That basically is one of the only events we have coming up in this month, but there are going to be a lot more coming up before spring break and after. We'd like to thank all of you for your continued support of Coeur d'Alene High School, and with that being said, roll Vikes!
Thank you, CHS. Good to have you with us as well, Austin, this evening. So, Lake City.
Trustees, Superintendent Hawker, and District Administration. My name is Caden Stone, and I'm the ASB President here at Lake City High School. It's been a couple of months, so we wanted to update you on what's been keeping us busy. Over these past couple of months, Lake City students have been extremely active in our community. During first semester, our senior economics students worked hard to raise close to $7,000. This hard work paid off right before the holiday break when 120 of those students paid a visit to our local Walmart to collect gifts and food for families in our community through the Family Promise and Union Gospel Mission charities. More recently, our school partnered with Coeur d'Alene High School for a second annual All for All Month of Giving, where we collected warmth items for Family Promise, winter clothing items for St. Vincent de Paul, family needs items for Safe Passage, and hygiene items for Union Gospel Mission. All for All 2022 was a huge success, and we were very excited to work with CHS again to help folks in our community. Our school also hosted some individual item drives with our very own Hope Club holding a book drive from December 7th to 17th for Bryan and Bora Elementary Schools, and our football team holding a toy drive for Toys for Tots at a basketball game on December 21st. Both drives went very well, and we were able to help out many kids in our area. Overall, we couldn't be happier with the initiative our students took to help our community over these past couple months, and we are so proud of the culture of love, empathy, and serving that our school embraces. In activities news, our band and orchestra held their winter concerts on December 8th and 9th. Our extremely talented music students sounded amazing, and we are so proud of them and our new music program director, Mr. Frazier, for all the hard work they put in. On the athletic side of things, our winter teams are doing great. Our girls basketball team will face CHS tomorrow night for the district championship, and our boys team is riding high atop the Inland Empire League at 18-1, with their district tournament coming up in just over a week. We are also extremely excited for our wrestling team, who will be hosting the district tournaments at LCHS in just a couple of weeks. In college and career news, we are looking forward to welcoming several more colleges, universities, military branches, and other career opportunities into Lake City this month to meet with our students. With our junior class starting the college process up soon, many of them are enrolled in our spring section of college prep, which will help them prepare for the SAT this spring and the college applications process next fall. Many of the colleges and branches coming into LCHS this month will be focused on juniors, and we are super excited for them as they start on this journey. NIC Connect is also up and running, focusing on financial aid and scholarships. A huge thank you to our college and career advisor, Ms. Georges, for working to make these opportunities and so much more available and advertised for our students. So we're looking forward to February being another great month here at Lake City. Thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you tonight, and we'll see you again next month. Go T-Wolves.
Thanks, Lake City. Up next, we have K-Tech.
My name is Nathan Hammond, and I am part of the Automated Machining and Manufacturing class.
My name is Ricky Haney, and I'm in the Automated Manufacturing program. My favorite part is just learning how to do new things. I mean, before I got in here, I didn't even know what a mill was, and now I can go really make almost anything I want to make.
My favorite part is that it's very hands-on, and that you can kind of work at your own pace, which has allowed me to work ahead.
Just have a good time and learn new things and be hands-on.
Last year I helped work on a slide shovel guitar, and then we've made trebuchets, which are a project that's required here.
Well, we've made a lot of things in this class. We started off on the manual mills and lathes, making smaller things that were easier to make.
And then this year I'm working on making a 12-string Telecaster guitar.
Now we're on the CNC machines where the possibilities are really endless. We've made everything from like clocks to speed handles for the vices on the mills, and anything you can think of we can make more or less. Right now we're a little bit ahead of the class, or a few of us are. So a few of us in the afternoon class and some guys in the morning class are working on making an engine.
I'm currently working on a couple of projects. I'm working on a Pinewood Derby car. I'm milling that on one of the CNC machines.
So we're machining all the parts and designing the codes for them and making prints for them and getting that ready to go.
After I graduate from high school, I'm hoping to apprenticeship at Floyd's Custom Shop, which is where I work now.
I'm enlisted in the United States Navy, so I'm going to be going to boot camp a month after graduation. I'm going to be a heavy equipment operator, and after I'm out, I want to own an excavation company.
And hopefully attend the Oxark welding course to learn how to weld. And from there, we'll see.
Thank you for supporting K-Tech.
Great, thank you, K-Tech. And Venture.
In all four of Mrs. Baker's culinary classes, they have been making all sorts of cookies. Mrs. Baker volunteers at the soup kitchen and helps feed the homeless. Unfortunately, the brother of a close friend has passed away, and she was asked to make cookies for the funeral to help brighten the mood. Fortunately for Baker, she has her classes to help out. The total goal of cookies was 1,500.
Mrs. Baker is doing this to have moral support for her close friend, and it gives the students the opportunity to experience catering. On January 13th, Mrs. Baker's culinary classes took a field trip to North Idaho College to visit their culinary arts program. The class met with the head of the culinary arts program. Hillary took them into her classroom to talk about the hard work and activities they do. Then she led the class into her kitchen, where each of her students were working on a variety of different projects, including guacamole, chicken sausages, and bread. She then let the students ask questions about the profession and the college major. The culinary arts program also runs a mini restaurant Wednesday through Thursday inside of the college that serves other college students. This trip was very beneficial to Mrs. Baker's students because they got the opportunity to see how culinary works and how much effort it takes to put into that major. In January, Venture High School hosted their first wellness class on Friday the 14th. A wellness class is something other than work time. The time is supposed to be used for extracurricular activities. For example, Mr. Mahoney and his class went and did rock climbing in the gym. Mrs. Pavlik's class did card games in the cafeteria, and so on. The point of this class is to be doing something interactive with your classmates. The reason this was reintroduced was because Venture doesn't offer extracurricular activities before or after school other than COPE classes on Wednesday after school, so Venture decided to move some time into the regular school schedule. Mrs. Majan's class has been doing a graph project. This project consists of finding the height and circumference of classmates' heads and bodies. Then they put their knowledge of graphing into the project. They also came up with predictions to see if their answers were comparable.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Venture. Lots of great things going on at each of our high schools. Good. We're going to move on. We have our student advisory group, and I'm excited to hear their presentation. It's good to have you all here.
Hello? There we go.
There we go. Alrighty. Hi, everyone. I just would like to thank you for having us here tonight. My name is Ainsley Brigham. I am Student Advisory Group's chair, and here with me tonight is my vice chair, Austin Smith. Along with us here today is SAG's elementary school representative, Jameson Meyer, and then we have our SAG friend representing the middle school levels meeting through Zoom today. On January 19th, all levels of SAG came together for a leadership conference, and we focused on 5 main concerns: kindness, safety, mental health and wellness, student self-expression, and electives, and class choice. With that being said, each level wanted to share with the board one suggestion for these concerns focused on this past month. So I will now pass the mic to my friend Jameson.
Good evening, Chair Smith, members of the board, Superintendent Hawker, and school district staff. My name is Jameson Meyer, and I'm a 5th grader at Sorensen Magnet School. I will be sharing some concerns and suggestions we have come up with this past month related to the topics of safety and kindness regarding elementary students. Some ideas we came up with for safety were adding more security cameras on the fences on the playground because of potential risk of kids jumping the fence, and adding more recess advisors if cameras are not available. Adding more security cameras is something that is needed for the safety of kids getting out of school during recess periods and or lunch periods. This could also identify if there is anyone suspicious trying to climb the fence from outside of the school. It will also catch if kids are doing things they're not supposed to do during the recess period. Another one of our concerns is not having enough recess advisors on the playground. We think that more recess advisors are needed to keep an eye on kids if there is anyone suspicious outside of the school area during recess time. This would also help make the playground a safer environment because it would help prevent bullying with more eyes on the playground. Some ideas we came up with for kindness were putting posters around the schools that encourage kindness and making a stricter anti-bullying policy. We think that posters that are encouraging students to be kind will help with boosting students' moods and help with bullying by encouraging everyone to be kind. The school district could also do a kindness kid of the day or week on their webpage. It would make kids want to be kind to each other so they were recognized, or just encourage them to be kind to each other in general. Another one of our concerns for kindness was reviewing the anti-bullying policy. Even though we have one, students are still getting bullied. Kids are afraid to show up to school because they're constantly being bullied, and it is a big problem. This mainly happens at recess or in the hallways. So more security cameras would help with that problem, or putting up anti-bullying posters in the hallways. That also goes with the positive messages I just talked about. Thank you for listening to our concerns for safety at the elementary level and ways we can show kindness. We hope that you take our ideas into consideration and help us accomplish our goals. Thank you.
I don't know if I can top that one, guys. So you just did a great job talking about some safety concerns at the elementary level. I'm going to talk about some safety concerns at the high school level. So as I'm sure most of you already know, both of our high schools have an open campus policy, especially during lunch, wherein most doors to the school are not only unlocked, but oftentimes unwatched or unmonitored. We in fact have had some reports of CHS students coming into Lake City during the lunch period and socializing with the students without ever being stopped or asked what they are doing. One proposed solution we ask that you implement that may help with this, we've nicknamed as the Costco card method, in which you would consider placing some of our already present campus security officers, staff, or administrators on lunch duty at these entrances, and then when students re-enter into the building from coming out from lunch, they simply show their student ID, like the Costco card method. We believe that this could help eliminate that problem. Thank you.
I think now we will hear from our middle school friends here on Zoom.
Thank you, school board members, for having me speak tonight. My name is Jovi Lay, and I'm a 7th grader at Canfield.
My name is Emma Dirks, and I'm an 8th grader at Lakes. We completed a survey of all middle school students that showed a lot of similarities with our big 5 concerns that were discussed at the retreat. One of our biggest issues from our middle school survey results was self-expression through language. Multiple students feel like they should be allowed to have more freedom of expression through words. One issue with this is that other students feel uncomfortable when people use vulgar language. We're working to find a balance between the two so that everyone feels free of language and still comfortable in class.
Many students from middle school surveys is an ongoing concern. School and home work-life balance is difficult. Many students mentioned this is causing additional stress, and we are thinking of ways to support the students. Some solutions included an optional study hall at the end of the day. Other options included built-in study time in classes or reduced homework.
Other survey results focused on student self-expression. Many students mentioned feeling unfairly targeted by the school dress code. We would like to take time to look at the school board policy regarding dress code and share some ideas for revisions with you in the future. We will also be sharing the results of the survey with you, our board members, school principals, and all staff so everyone can see these concerns and ideas for improvement. Thank you again, board members, for having us on.
Yes. The final concern that we identified at our student leadership conference was some electives and class choices. Oftentimes, teachers may end up being required teaching classes that they don't want to, and even more often, students will end up taking classes that they most certainly don't want to. Personally, I can attest that I don't think I've ever been asked what electives I would like to have seen brought into my school. And I doubt that any of the teachers have ever been asked, what electives would you like to bring into the school? Perhaps I'm mistaken, but this is on my current understanding. We think that it would be prudent that perhaps at the end of the school year, students be asked what they would like to be brought in to create a positive change within their school, what electives they'd like to take,
kind of closing up here today, I would just like to add that in addition to the conference, the high school group met last week and had an additional concern and suggestion. The concern is that we have many substitute teachers, and these subs are given class rosters, often with overly formal, full legal names. For example, my friend Alexandra only goes by Lexi and always has, and yet every time there's a substitute teacher, after roll call, Lexi feels embarrassed and uncomfortable. Many students share Lexi's same experience daily. A preferred name list is a simple solution to ensure all students feel safe and comfortable during roll call. Would the board consider approving a preferred name list for student rosters, given parents' approval of the preferred name? In closing, I would just like to thank you again so much for listening and taking the time tonight to support student voice and considering our suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you. We might have a few questions and follow up for sure. I think one thing that's important to note is that sometimes when we're up here writing, and I saw Dr. Hawker writing a few things down for sure, is that tomorrow Dr. Hawker takes the things that happen kind of here, that he hears and he listens, and then he directs all of our district staff then with follow up. But I heard a lot of things within that presentation that from my seat, and I'm going to assume from our seat, that we'd like just follow up with to see how we can address those things. And
I think that would be great. I think we have lots of questions and would love to continue these conversations further. That was very, very, very good.
Yeah, I had the privilege of sitting in on your meeting last week, and I think this is important for all of the community to hear. One of the things I was really impressed with was your ability to really see both sides, because you saw challenges that the community might face and we as a district as well. And so I really appreciated that as I listened, and I learned a lot. I wouldn't have thought, a substitute teacher reading the same name, not on my radar. So thank you for that. Any questions at this point, or we can let Dr. Hawker follow up to see what kind of actions we can.
I have a question. Just you mentioned you went on a retreat. I'm curious about that. Did this work? That's okay.
On? Yeah, it's working. Awesome. Yes. So on January 19th, all levels of student advisory group came together here at Midtown for a leadership retreat conference activity, and just so we all get to come together kind of as one and brainstorm all these different ideas that are being affected throughout elementary school levels and middle school levels and high school levels that we all don't get to see all too much. And so I think that's kind of where we came up with the 5 biggest concerns that we wanted to present here today. It went really great. It was really awesome to see everybody's faces. And so, yeah, we look forward to doing more of those in the future for sure.
Ainsley, so the posters behind you there are kind of reflective of some of that work that you guys did during the retreat, I assume?
A little bit, yes. Okay. Lots of colors and fun words for sure. But yes, those are our little brainstorm outlines to be shared. So, yeah.
Cool. Thank you so much. The work you're doing is important, and I'm excited to see how we can all work together to see what we can make happen. Thank you. All right. I'd like to invite Mr. Hayes up to the podium to give us a report from CEA. Let's go ahead and hit your mic. Thank you.
I should know this as a music teacher to check the mics. Sorry. So, as always, thank you very much for your commitment and hard work for this district. We really appreciate it. And Trustee Tembrink, thank you for your acknowledgement of how hard this season has been for a lot of folks. 3 main points I want to bring you up on, just the CAPS progress. I've talked a lot about the APE language that the subcommittees have worked a lot on, and the issues of soft start and before and after school duties. The third subcommittee that's working right now towards sort of the end of this month, and hopefully they'll be finished up, is the issue of the dual credit stipends that the CEA has been trying to advocate for the last couple of years. And in the report I actually prepared for you, I gave you the example MOU from the University of Idaho, where the teachers at the high schools who are teaching these dual credit classes, which are really popular for high school kids working on their associates before they finish graduation, are asking for a certain stipend for the work they do for the universities that the district is getting compensated for. And so as if I understand the district right, the concerns have been a lot of the equity issues where the AP teachers or other teachers doing these advanced programs aren't receiving the same sort of thing. And so the subcommittee work has gone into the detail of sort of trying to find a compromise of getting the dual credit stipend of some form for those teachers who are doing the work for the University of Idaho. And I won't read through the language. I just wanted to emphasize that those teachers are, they have this list of things that they're working on. And so hopefully the subcommittee, which includes district and CEA people, will come to a good proposal that they'll be able to share with us sometime early this spring. The second thing I wanted to bring up, last month we heard a really informative report from Mr. Westrup about the facilities and maintenance shortages, and especially the personnel issues that they're struggling with. And I think we all are keenly aware of the substitute challenges that persist. I just wanted to stay vocal and really emphasize that we still have, if we go on Skyward and look at the job openings that our district currently has, there's still a lot. And when I was preparing this last week, there was just over 60, and I don't know, maybe magically some of those got filled this last week. But the staffing shortages, as we all know, are nationwide and region-wide. I'm just really encouraging you to not take a fatalistic approach of like, well, we just can't find anybody for these positions. And I pulled out the example of Bora Elementary, which currently doesn't have a music teacher and is missing some special ed aides as well. And if you think about a classroom teacher there, and maybe they have this figured out right now. I haven't heard a lot of really vocal complaints from anybody there. But that means that those teachers who could have been relying on a special ed professional who had earlier this year who had a prep coverage from the music teacher is, in addition to having the soft start issue, has a lot of tough decisions and really long days this spring ahead of them. And that's going to start really burning people out really fast. And that's not even connected with the sub issues and trying to cover for our colleagues as that comes up, which people have been doing a lot of. So I know Dr. Hawker has been thinking a lot about this, and I just hope and really encourage us to maintain this as a priority, especially when we're looking at the special ed departments. And I noticed that I think they're going to talk as well, so they can be more specific. Maybe they solved everything already and it's behind us. I'm not sure that's true, but we're all a team and we're inextricably combined together. Parents, teachers, administrators, paraprofessionals, custodial. If one of those links isn't there or not able to support the other parts, then our jobs become very stressful and the days become very long. And I don't want to make it sound like we're all just going to get up and leave. I'm not optimistic we're all going to like be able to maintain a career as heavy and stressful as this year. But I did want to bring up, where's the mouse? Oh, historically, I have a chart. Dr. Nelson will be proud of me. I don't see the mouse though. Can I scroll this? Oh, there he is. Our teacher retention rate is quite good historically. 90%. That's an A or a P, I guess, as it is nowadays. And so it's not like we're leaving for the Central Valley District as soon as we can. A lot of us are here for the long haul and are really working very hard to try to make this community and our school district a better place. And so we have, there's a lot of stuff we've been doing really well. So I don't want to make it sound like we're all burnt out and thus quitting, but we are burnt out and are really, really hoping that as we go into the spring and next year that we can look really carefully at the problems that have come up this year and be able to solve them going forward. So that's all I'll take your time for this evening, and thank you very much.
Terrific. Thank you so much, Aaron. Appreciate it. And Aaron is representing Coeur d'Alene Education Association. So I had said CEA at the beginning, and so I need to remember not everyone knows those acronyms. So thanks for bringing important things to the table. We are working our way through just different departments every month. That's kind of on our docket. And so last month we heard from our maintenance department. And so tonight we want to give an opportunity to hear from Frank Mayer. And we want to hear more about our special education department and what's going on. So thank you.
All right. Good evening, Chair Smith, board members, Superintendent Hawker. Aaron, I wish I could stand up here and say we got it all solved, but we don't. I want to thank you for this opportunity to share an update on the district special ed department. So, got a slideshow that we'll kind of go through right here. We'll switch to the next slide, please. So, sort of our breakout of our staff at the district office. There's myself at the top as the director. We have two assistant directors, Amy Fine and Jenny Jensen. Jenny does the elementary schools. She's also the preschool coordinator. And Amy does the secondary schools along with our 18 to 21 programs as well. We also have 4 consulting teachers. Each one of those teachers is assigned a number of schools. So out of our 18 schools and programs, it's separated amongst those 4 consulting teachers. Now, these teachers are the ones that are in the schools every day working with our staff on a constant basis, whether it's instruction, behavior management, whether it's paperwork compliance. They are there every day working with those teachers and staff members. Speaking of staff, we currently have certificate teaching staff, classified staff, school psychs, and just kind of give you a number here. Our certificate teaching staff, we're at about 93 certificated teaching staff members. We have about 139 classified staff. We operate on 12 school psychologists. We have 15 speech and language pathologists. We have 3 OTs, or occupational therapists, because we love acronyms. You're going to learn about special ed. We love acronyms. We have 1 physical therapist, 1 teacher deaf and hard of hearing, and 1 teacher visually impaired. Not on there, but I want to add is that we do have a Medicaid specialist and a Medicaid assistant as well to help us with all that paperwork. And these staff members are the ones that make all of our programs and services run on a daily basis. So they're really the ones, the heart of the program here. Give you an idea on the programs and services. At every school, we have a resource program. At every school, we have speech and language services. Now, when we get into more specifics, we have what's called special programs, as we refer to them as special programs at least. And those, first one there is our extended resource program. And that is housed at Ramsey Elementary. We have 1 class there. We have 2 ERRs, as we call it, because I told you acronyms, so you guys stay here. Skyway has 2, and Woodland has 2 as well. And just to continue with that, another special program that we do house is our life skills program. We have 2 at Fernand, one at Nexa, 2 at Canfield Middle School, and 2 at each high school. And those are our life skills programs. We also have a therapeutic support class, which was at one point known as Pathways in our district. We have 3 at Winton Elementary, 1 at Lakes Middle, and 1 at Venture. And then, like I mentioned earlier, we have 2 programs for our students from 18 to 21 years old, one being Project Search and the other one being our STEP program. So. And to kind of go along with services, some of additional services that we do offer in our school district is OT, physical therapy, there's nursing services, assistive technology, behavior intervention services, just to name a few. We provide comprehensive psychoeducational evaluations. Some of our students do require Braille. We're able to provide that. And then we're also always looking for ways to either improve our services or add services wherever we can, because that's kind of our job. I want to give you an idea on student growth in our district. So going back to 16, 17, our child count, and when I refer to child count, I mean these are our students who have IEPs. We were at 16, 17, we had 979 students on an IEP, and that was a 7% increase from the year before. Now, the number I kind of want you to focus on is that percentage at the very end. That's the percentage of total student population. So out of all the students in the school district, what percentage of students are on an IEP? So as you see, we have an increase almost every year until we get to that darn COVID year last year. So in that year, we went from 1,136 to 984. So that was a drop of 152 students. Now, that's due to students moved away, students went to private school instead, students were homeschooled instead. So there was a number of reasons why there was such a drop. But still, if you look at the end of the day, we were still at about 10% of the population of students, because as the student population also dropped, it stayed in line with that. So 10% is kind of been our average, which is good, and which is really good. So when we evaluate a student, our teams at the schools are looking at different eligibility categories. Now, when we assess a student, we assess a student in every area of a suspected disability. So if a parent comes and says, I have these concerns, we will assess in those areas if we can. Also, if our team has a suspected disability that they have, we will assess them there. So many times students come in to us, we start assessing them for certain areas, and our team start noticing other things, and we will assess in other areas that maybe weren't a concern at first because things are recognized. So it goes both ways. It's a suspected disability either on the family side or the school side. And those are the eligibility categories that we function under. The one that may be a little different, if you look at speech or language impairment, that can be taken apart as to either a speech impairment or a language impairment. But for the state, it recognizes it as one category. So we have those different eligibility categories. And those acronyms at the end are going to help you for the next slide. So going back to 2021, and when we had about 984 students on an IEP, we break it down into by disability. So how many students were under certain eligibilities? If you look at our highest ones, OHI, which is other health impairment, and SLI, which is speech or language impairment. Those are our 2 highest. Coming up right behind is SLD, which is a specific learning disability. And OHI is high, it's always been high. That's where you'll find your students who maybe have a diagnosis of ADHD. They fall under that category. So, and like I said, about 984 total students that year. So the growth, to continue with the growth, we went from 984 at our count last year, and our count from 2 months ago is now at 1,149. So we have all those students who may have left that last year, they've come back. It's been a combination of them coming back to the school district. There's been a huge influx of students from just moving in. As we know, our community is growing rapidly. So we have a huge influx of students moving in with IEPs already. We've also seen quite a number of students who have come in who have never been in school before. And we're talking 2nd graders and 3rd graders. So of course, we swoop in to try to service them and see if there's anything that we can do. So that is a 16.8% increase. which still keeps us at about 10.7 of our student population. And like I said, it's good because the national average is currently about 13.7. So we hover around that 10%. So just to give you an idea, an IEP must meet certain requirements of laws and regulations. The Idaho State Department of Education sets up and designs a system to ensure that the regulations and laws of IDEA are being followed by each school district. And some of the basic compliance concepts that we look at here are the IEP, Specially Designed Instruction, FAPE, which is Free and Appropriate Public Education, LRE, Least Restrictive Environment, and then we also look at student outcomes, graduation, we look at post-secondary transition, early childhood outcomes. And all this information is pulled from our district's IEPs when we do our yearly file review. So every year we have to do a file review and we submit files to the state for compliance checks. Just to dig a little deeper in terms of compliance, because this is a big part of our job and what we do, is making sure that we are compliant across the board. We have about 17 to 20 indicators, depending on who you ask, and that the state looks at. The state, though, has prioritized 10 of those indicators. Some of those indicators are that they have prioritized our graduation rates, our dropout rates, participation in statewide assessments, and suspension and expulsions. Also, the last two on the bottom there, which are disproportionate representations, whether in the classroom itself or in specific categories. So what the state does, they looks at those priority indicators, they pull their information from our file review, and then they give us a score. They score us on each one of those indicators on a score from 1, 2, or 3. No, excuse me, from 1 to 4, 4 being the highest. After they have scored each one of those indicators, they go ahead and they give you an overall score, and that puts you in a level of support, either a level 1, a level 2, or a level 3. Level 1 means you just need some support, you may need some guidance. Level 2 means you may need a little bit more support from the state, and level 3 means state, we're taking over, we're going to show you exactly what you need to do and why you're not getting the scores you need to get. And for us, we've been on a level 1, we're supporting and guiding, so we are good across the board. Just go on the next slide there. This is just a continuation of the indicators, so if you ever want to take a look at them. Some of the other priority ones, again, the time frame between evaluation and identification, which is child find, which is an obligation that we have, that every teacher and any school staff member really has, is that if there is a suspected disability on a child that a child may have, or just if a child is struggling in any area, we have an obligation to see if we can help in any way. That's called basically what we call a child find. And what that means is that once we have determined a student needs or would benefit from an evaluation, once we have that approval to do that from a parent, we have approximately 60 days to do that assessment and determine if the child meets eligibility in one of the categories. And if we pass that 60 days, we are out of compliance, and that is not good. So we have to continuously monitor all that. Now, while the state really checks in on those 10 indicators, we are continuously looking and monitoring for compliance in all indicators throughout the year. So again, like I said, compliance is a big part of our job. Just for our department goals, again, we're always looking for, like I said, we're always looking for ways to increase our services or make our services better. Inclusion is big for us. We want to continue to keep pushing that inclusion across all environments, from ages 3 to 21, from our little preschoolers all the way to our adults who are 20, 21 years old. We want to increase individualization because, again, an IEP is individualized to a specific student. So for us, that's important, and just to make sure that we're maintaining that individualization. And again, staff recruitment and retention, like Aaron mentioned before, it's always a big one for us. We're still down a teacher. We have a teacher opening at a high school, Venture High School, that we haven't been able to fill. So, and paras, there's just not people out there that are applying, but we're making it work, and we'll get through it. So, and that's it. Stand for any questions.
Thanks, Frank.
Yeah.
Quick question for you. I think this is your 4th year with us in the district, is that right? Can you just maybe briefly talk about some of the initiatives that your department's taken on, if there are some kind of specific, thinking in my 6.5 years history in the district, I recall at one time it seemed like kind of the compliance issue, the paperwork was really burdensome on staff, and that's not something I feel like I hear about as much, and maybe it's because of all the other things they've got that have become burdensome, but could you just talk about maybe some of the things you guys have done?
Yeah, so when I came onto the district here, we had just gone through the futures audit that was here. And in that audit, it came out to certain steps that we could take to improve the department. One of them was creating an assistant director, 2 assistant directors, one for elementary and one for secondary, which was already put into place before I came, which was great. We also, when I started, we had 3 consulting teachers, and now we're at 4. So I think that increased support has been able to help all the staff at the school work through that paperwork compliance. And we've just gotten better. I mean, the processes that we put in place has really helped us to really increase that so that we're not making any mistakes. Our compliance has been very good the last 4 years. And even before I think I came here, compliance was not a huge issue. The paperwork is always there. The paperwork is not going away. And in special ed, an actual paper is still king for us because that is the legal document that we work off of. So there's just a lot of things that we put into place to make sure that we are compliant across the board. And also the state has put in a few things that, while it's a lot of work, it's been beneficial. Like when we do our yearly file review, we're supposed to submit 30 names of students who we feel have compliant files. For us, that's a lot of work. So for us, what we've done is make sure that we'll pull a file from every teacher. It gives us an opportunity to look through all of those files and find areas for growth and PD in the future. So, and then from there we weed it down. So just a lot of things that we put into place that help us continuously check. And also our staff is really good. If they have a question, they're not afraid to reach out. And if we don't know, we will find out. And that's what we do.
I just had a question. I'm not sure what therapeutic support is. What is that?
So those are
Who's that
students.
serving?
Those are students who may have an eligibility of an emotional behavior disorder. So those are students who, it's a program that's designed for those students who's, cognitively maybe average or above average, but may have a disability in that category that prevents them from progressing. So we get them in a program, we work on those behaviors, work on those sort of issues they may have, and get them pushed out.
Okay, thank you.
Any additional questions or? Rick, you talked a lot about compliance tonight and all the paperwork, and I know that that's a big part of it. Is there one thing you'd want us to know and want the community to know, especially about our special education students?
Yeah. So our special education students, the way we view them, they are students. They're students first. They're students first that need some services to help them access their education. So a lot of times we hear they're on an IEP, they're on an IEP. I understand they're on an IEP, but for us, they're students, and they need to be treated as such. So that is really important for me. That's really important for our department, is that we see them as students and not as special education students. So,
Terrific. Thank you. Anything else you want us to know?
there's a lot here.
10% of our students is a lot.
It's a lot, yeah.
So-
Our staff is they're amazing. They're amazing. As Board Member Tembrick mentioned earlier, they fill in for each other. They support each other. Just to give you an example, we have in our district, our school psychs and our speech pathologists get to, collaborate every week, which is unheard of around here, and because they support each other. Our staff, they support each other. We have extremely hardworking paraprofessionals. It's difficult sometimes because we just don't get the people who apply because our compensation is just not there. So depending on who we get, on who actually applies, I mean, like I said, we have positions that have not been filled yet. We have, and they've been open since last spring. Teachers are because of the paperwork issue, paperwork is, like I said, it's not going away and it's always an issue, but paperwork can be a huge burnout. And we see a lot of burnout, a lot of turnover in our department throughout the school district. And so anything we can do to make things easier for them, we try to do. But they are hardworking people, and they are just, they make everything run. So we do what we can to support them.
We had the privilege as a team of touring Fernan this past week, and so we saw firsthand just what was going on, especially at Fernan and the life skills program there. And so that was powerful for all of us to get a chance to see that firsthand. So thank you, and thank you to all your team for all you're doing.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks.
It's time this evening for public comment, and just a few announcements as we move into this part of our meeting. I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Trustees that takes place in public, it's not a meeting with the public. It's a meeting of the board to conduct district business. The board does allow some limited public comment on district-related items, and those wishing to address the board during this public comment period are limited to one comment not to exceed 3 minutes. At the designated time, you'll be called up to our podium. Please state your name and your address or your city of residence. If you have additional comments that you'd like to be presented to the board, you can provide these comments in writing to the clerk of the board, who will ensure that the board members receive this additional commentary. Please keep in mind that the board members will not respond to public comment. If it's determined that an individual statement is too lengthy, personally directed, abusive, or repetitive, I may terminate the speaker's privilege to address the board. This evening, we have 4 folks that are signed up for public comment, and so I'd like to welcome Ann Seddon to the board, to the podium. Thank you. I think you have to push the button. Yeah.
Oh,
There you are.
can you hear?
All right. Yeah. Terrific. Thank you.
First of all, before I start, I just want to say thank you to the teachers out there. It really warms my heart to hear about the work with the special ed kids. I know it takes a lot of heart and a lot of hard work. I don't want to tell you how much I appreciate them. I'm here again with heavy heart. The more research I do into the social emotional and the SEL program, the more I really have found things that, I don't know, it's really hard for me to talk about them. You've hired a person from PEBC to come and help train teachers, and you've sent, I don't know, 160 something or other teachers, I don't know the number, back to Denver. And I just want the community and the board to be aware of things you may not know about PEBC. This is from the president and CEO of the organization. Among the goals, to continue building our awareness about power, privilege, oppression, through researching and listening and questions. And this one really hits me, because this is illegal. Disrupt white supremacy, cultural norms, individually, interpersonally, and institutionally. That's what you've hired. From off the internet, PEBC. Under what? Cultivating human dignity of all responsibilities and those with racial, cultural, social, and economic privilege have an undisputed responsibility to transform and share power. This is political. PEBC also. Therefore, as individuals and as an organization, we commit to disrupting inequalities. Under how? disrupt white supremacy, cultural norms, individually, personally, and institutionally again. I am really just disheartened. What is going on? You have hired, you have an organizational group to go through and look at the SEL and the portrait, I'm sorry, this is sort of emotional with me. And from what I hear, it's window dressing, taking out references to radical people that were references. Now, taking out the reference.
And Anne, you're at 3 minutes, so if you want to wrap it up, thank you.
I never have time to get to second step. Please, go on. Parents, go look at it. We're committed to addressing radical injustice, change, transformation. Please, board, look at this stuff. I have it for you. Give me a call. Send me an email. We've just written, Republican women have just sent a letter to the legislature outlining this and what these programs are about. Please come. I feel like an expert now.
Thank you, Anne.
And I'm really disheartened, but please do it.
Thank you for sharing and coming this evening.
Ms. Sutton, I know you have a lot of information there. If you wouldn't mind getting that to the board, I'd appreciate it. I know we've had some opportunity to meet over the years, and I think lost an opportunity this fall where you and I didn't get together. But
Can we just get together?
Sure. I'd love to, but I think all my board members, fellow board members, would love to just get the information that you have there. I know you have a lot of information, so please do. Thank you.
Laura Van Voorhees.
Hello. Laura Van Voorhees, Hayden. I presented this information last week to the state legislator in Boise, and I wrote a 5-minute overview of social emotional learning, what it is, but I don't have time to read it, and so I did a bullet point version. Parents, if you read what the sugar-coated version that Castle has presented, it sounds really good. I've even had people on at the legislature, senators that we have kids that think it's great. Social emotional learning, it's great. The equity program, great. Well, I have been looking at this like Ann has for a year now, since I got here. And the more I read, the more horrified I am, like Ann is. And I was blessed to find an article by Corey Lynn, and I would suggest you all look at Corey Diggs, COREYSDIGS.com. She has written, she's on part 6 of a 9-part series. I'm in communications with her, and when this 9-part series is done and she's done a PDF on it, I'm going to make sure all of you get a full 9-part series. This is something that has to be addressed. And it's the Alert 2030 Psychological Agenda, Obedience Training for Pre-K to Adults, already global with billions in funding for full control. And that's what social emotional learning really is. And so I, on this second on this sheet, I give a little synopsis of what Castle says, but you can read it for yourself, and it's all throughout the social emotional framework that you can find at cdaschools.com. But this is what social emotional learning really is. It is a full-blown World Economic Forum Agenda 2030 operation for the entire population to conform to one mindset and one belief system with controlled obedience. That is what's happening in this school. And I suggest, Dr. Hawker, maybe that's why you were, on your recent announcement, that's why you want parents to look at being open to change, because this is a change they're talking about. They want you parents too. They don't just want the kids, they want the parents too. And they want the community. They want everybody. So you should feel as threatened as your children are being brainwashed. That is to build a global citizen workforce that operates on demand and activates through virtual and augmented reality. It is the framework they can sell parents on to convince parents to train their own children while training themselves without even realizing it. And if you read the framework, you'll see that they say that you need to reinforce it at home to have it really work. They're brainwashing you too, parents.
And Laura, you're at 3 minutes.
Okay. It is the mechanism they're using through counselors, educators, physicians, businesses who are also being fooled by the illusion. It is a whole family, a whole community agenda. It is shrouded in subtleties, reverse psychology, emotional charges, and delivered in a way that will excite children and bring hope to parents. They are so slick with their wording, their marketing, and buying off and convincing policymakers to make the world believe that this is the way to the future, that 99% of the population has no idea that this is even going on. This is the new vision of education for the fourth industrial revolution. The U.S. Department of Education,
Laura, can you
Health and Human
wrap it up?
Services, CDC, and other agencies are already on board with this. You are all under threat. And I am calling for Portrait of Graduate to be completely disbanded and outlawed in this community.
Thank you, Laura. Howard Coons?
My name's Howard Coons, and I live in Coeur d'Alene. On page 6 of Instructional Framework, you say that you believe in the adaptive challenge of reinventing American public schools. On page 2 of Social and Emotional Learning, I quote, "For too long we have committed to time structures, coursework, instructional methods, and assessments designed more than a century ago." Clearly, your strategic plan begins with the premise that the old ways are not good. But why? Are you aware that SAT scores peaked in the 60s? Since then, educational elites have regularly introduced innovative methods, and I note that innovate is one of your bywords, each one promising to improve the educational process. Open classrooms, content area reading, cooperative learning, team teaching, new math, whole language, but things haven't gotten better. Now you intend to implement student-centered collaborative learning where the teacher no longer teaches but facilitates the students exploring their own ideas. That's from page 10. At the last school board meeting, Dr. Nelson presented an example of the way in which assessments would be made under your new strategic plan. I would call what he showed us micro-assessment. Given enough time, a person could probably come up with 1,000 such micro-assessments for a second grader, resulting in an enormous package of information. I have here a report card from a second grader from Roosevelt School, 1930. And there is a number grade for each of several different categories: health, conduct, effort, reading and literature, spelling, arithmetic, printing, music, and drawing. Now, the reason I'm holding this up is because this is very brief, and yet I'm sure that the parents had a good idea of how their student was doing. And that's all it takes. In closing, I'd like to point out that there are 6 facets to the Portrait of a Graduate program, but only one of them concerns academic content. The other 5 involve whole child social and emotional learning. How to think about things, how to feel about things, how to react to things. In other words, their worldview. I have a book here written by a woman who has experience with that kind of education. From the age of 12, her education was provided by the German youth movement. By the time she was 18, she loved the Nazi movement and believed everything and anything that Adolf Hitler said. If you go to YouTube and search for Maria Ann Hirschman, you'll find a 1-hour segment of her in her 90s speaking to a group of young people in Hawaii. I recommend that you watch that. She will tell you why it's not a good idea to let the government form the worldview of our children.
And Mr. Coons, you're at 3 minutes, please.
Okay. You don't need to reinvent our schools. The old ways were good. I'd like to see you take down those 3 things and just put educate up there. And if you don't, you might as well just put indoctrinate.
Thank you, Mr. Coons. Matt Bronner? And apologies if I didn't say your name right. Thanks.
I got my timer. Is this still on? Awesome. Thanks for all the hard work that you do. I know you care deeply about our children, and you're not doing it because it's fun every day. So I appreciate that. I wanted to speak a little bit about what's in front of the board, what's been happening. You're hearing a lot from concerned parents about what is getting taught, and I saw on the agenda today that you are at least considering a pre-existing policy about teaching controversial materials. So I thought that I would start with some context, some recent history that kind of refers to this sudden upspringing of parents all across the country talking about really similar stuff in communities that are far apart. There are there's a large decades-old goal of pursuing an active strategy to divert public funding to private management of what otherwise is a public good. This is public education. The Thomas W. Smith Foundation, the Manhattan Institute, the Koch brothers, DeVos Family Heritage Foundation, they all put millions of dollars into supporting political groups, creating replicable materials. They have a material interest in taking over the public good that is public education. It is money, money, money. They also have an interest in power by keeping voters emotionally engaged. They have an active strategy to recode CRT as a catch-all. Recoding means that there's a similar use across time in a group to effectively change its meaning. Now it is a catch-all as a vessel for grievances about social justice. They've done this in supporting political groups and creating replicable materials and keeping their information on TV and the media. They have a strategy to keep their base of voters engaged with emotional issues, and this is not an effort to pursue education interests in earnest. As such, I think you could consider many of the arguments against CRT as being pursued in bad faith. This is a heads I win, tails you lose situation. It is not done in an effort to explore methods that improve the content and methods of teaching. Parenting is hard. You love and care for your children, and you want what is best for them. And I see you that way. And out of love for you as a community member, I will listen to your concerns with seriousness, and so will this board. That doesn't mean that I need to agree with you. It doesn't mean that they need to agree with you. And if you need to be agreed with, I suggest you reflect on that. School district administrators, staff, and teachers, they all love and care for our children without agreeing with us about everything. I graduated high school 20 years ago, and there is so much new information now. Even math has changed. And I expect my children to hear about and learn about things that I do not know. I think it is helpful to put our moment in a historical context. Ideas are always changing, culture is always changing, change always brings opportunities for disagreement. At some point, I know that's my 3 minutes. I'm gonna be as quick as I can. At some point, the idea that the earth was round was a new idea. There was likely a conflict in what was being taught and what was happening in some homes. At some point, the idea that women should vote was a new idea. This was likely in conflict with what was being taught in schools and what was being taught at homes. At some point in history, the idea that mixed race marriage shouldn't be illegal was a new idea. There was likely a conflict between what was being taught in some schools and taught in some homes. At some point, the idea that an adult woman could open a bank account under her own name was a new idea, and there was likely a conflict between what was being taught in some schools and taught in some homes. I can identify with being uncomfortable with something that my child has heard or been shown as part of their educational lessons, or of seeing them sit heavily with it and even being confused by these things. Suppose that, in the course of a lesson, a teacher uses their professional judgment to identify a way to
And
make
I'm going to
something
need you to wrap it
more
up.
relevant. All I'm saying is, you guys are working really hard, and with all due respect due to me, which is probably none, you don't want me deciding what your teachers are teaching your kids. You don't want each other making that decision. These are professionals with experience, and we should support them in making those decisions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all for coming and sharing and giving comment.
Ms. Smith, if you don't mind, and Mr. Bronner, maybe if you just hold just a second, Mr. Coons. I think you all had a lot to say there, more than the 3 minutes allowed. So if you want to share your comments, please get those to trustees@cdaschools.org. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up, we've got. Sure.
Take a 5-minute
Yeah.
bio break?
We are taking a 5-minute bio break. Let's go ahead and, Ms. Town, are we good? Ready? Sweet. All right. If everyone's ready, and if Scott, I'm going to assume we're on. So, no one's flagging me down. All right.
He's out with a thumbs up.
Got a thumbs up. We're good to go. We're going to move on to our consent agenda for this evening. Do I have a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
I would make a motion to approve consent agenda items A through J, and just do a quick call out to item J, which is the MOU with Lakeside Capital Group. They are the folks developing hundreds of acres off of Hutter Road. And as part of that MOU agreement that's in our packet, they are offering to dedicate 10 acres to the school district, so gift us 10 acres. And they've set aside a 20-acre parcel for the district to buy. 10 acres would be for an elementary school, and 20 acres would be for a middle school. It's still got a long ways to go, but this is a step in the process. So just to highlight that for anyone who's interested.
I second the motion to approve consent A through J.
Any other discussion? I would like to say thanks to Jeff and the whole team that's been really working, especially on that MOU. Is he on Zoom? So, Jeff, thank you for you and to Lakeside Capital for working together. There's a lot of great information in that MOU, so thank you for that. All in favor of tonight's consent agenda? Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. Consent agenda items for information. There we've got our discipline data, contracted services, a finance report, summary of administrative procedure revisions, and technology equipment disposals. Any questions for any of our team on any of those pieces tonight? I will just remind the community that oftentimes the board sends questions prior to our meetings. Those questions that we ask and that the district staff answers as well are available on our website following kind of this meeting. They're in the board packet, and so sometimes we ask a lot of questions that get answered. We don't always ask all of our questions up here. So I'm going to encourage the community to go back and take a look at some of those questions. Any other questions for information tonight? Nope. Seeing none then, I'm excited to have Dr. Hucker make an introduction.
All right, great. Well, next up, I would like to introduce you to Shannon Johnston, CEO over finance for the school district. Shannon's first presentation to the board. She'll give you a finance department overview. So, Shannon, they're all yours.
All right. This is on, right? Okay.
Just make sure.
Yep, we're good. All right. Good evening, Chair Smith and trustees. Thank you so much for having me on board. I'm just shy of a month, so it's been a whirlwind. Been super fun. Told Dr. Hawker, I'm kind of a nerd. I love our financial system. So that's some exciting things. Then there's been quite a few changes within our district. So we thought it'd be a great idea just to give an update of the finance department. Definitely some new changes within that, and kind of why we're here, what purpose we serve, and kind of what we do on an everyday basis. So let's see. All right. So no department overview is complete without a nice little org chart. We have an all-star cast of 10 in our group. So of course, me. And then we have some new faces, so I'll introduce those. We have Angela Durick, our new accounting manager. She started in late November, and she's a business manager from Kellogg, so she is a wealth of information. Been in school business for a long time, so we're super happy to have her on board. We got Sierra. She's our new grants accounting assistant, so she's doing a lot of the heavy COVID admin work, as well as SPED and our smaller grants and restricted programs as well. And then Becky she's kind of partway with HR and also overseeing the title finance work. Then we got Renee, accounts receivable and facility rentals. A familiar face there. Mallory Threet is our new accounts payable manager. She was promoted from accounts payable assistant. So a special shout out to Barb Burse. She retired a couple weeks ago after 23 loyal years with the district. So very excited for her, and she is sleeping in. So. And then Amy Kearns is, she's been with the district. She was at the building level, but she's now the accounts payable assistant and absolutely rocking it. And then we got Pam. We share her with tech, so she's a familiar face as well. And then kind of the power group, our payroll, Sandy and NJ, they hold down the fort. They're absolutely amazing. All right, so just kind of going over an overview of, we're kind of split, I guess, into 3 little subcategories if it's easiest to think about that. We first got payroll, so Sandy and NJ, on a monthly basis, they're processing payroll and benefits for over 1,400 staff. It is a very time-sensitive, stressful process, but they do it with a smile. So we absolutely love them. They're doing adjustments, helping people with benefit questions, leave questions, payroll questions, processing substitute payroll, a little new process starting, but they're still reconciling that. And then, the payroll taxes, retirement reporting, very, very heavy responsibility, time-sensitive stuff. So we are so lucky to have them. All right, our next is accounts payable and purchasing. Heavy compliance and internal controls with this. So although Mallory, she's newly promoted, she's been here for a year, she's a specialist already. She denies that, but she truly is. Mallory helps with department bids, contracts, purchase recs and POs for all our departments and buildings. With Amy, she's processing invoices, credit card payments, employee reimbursements, and they're also doing inter-district charges with transportation, print shop, all that. They're maintaining our vendors, doing our 1099 reporting. They just got done with that, so that was exciting for Mallory to do her first filing. And then always monitoring allowable costs, making sure budget codes are right. Just a lot of, it's very detailed work, and they're amazing with that. And then also providing our assistant treasurers with a lot of purchasing help too, so they're a huge support for them as well. And I hate to generalize accounting and budgeting, but there's just so much wrapped into it. We have an $80 million general operating budget along with dozens of other funds. So a lot of budget work, budget maintenance, things are constantly, reclassing, moving around, and then of course accounting, maintaining our unrestricted and restricted funds, accounts receivable, a lot of deposits coming in. We have our School Plus, tons of transactions, so Renee is on top of that. Bank recs are always fun, a new challenge for Angela. She's liking it in Skyward. And then fixed assets with Pam, she's making sure those bigger purchases and inventory, they're tagged, they're accounted for. There's more risk with that, so she is on top of that and making sure we are keeping track of that as a district. And then really important, school finance. It is a challenging one. Not only do you have to follow general accounting standards, you also have tons of different federal and state compliance requirements. Every new department has a different requirements. So it's challenging, but amazing work, fun work, at least for me. And then very important is making sure our audits are clean, working with our auditors and making we're on top of all the compliance requirements and our internal controls. And of course, providing SBA support as well and making sure our assistant treasurers are have what they need.
Can you tell us what SBA
is?
is?
Sorry, Student Body Association. And you'll see SBAA because it counts at the end. So it's an acronym, sorry.
Those acronyms.
Okay, so why we do it. Finance sometimes is somewhat of the mystery. Our first, as a school district, we're in education, we're operating schools. So it kind of, the message gets lost sometimes, but we really try to focus on why we're here, and we're here to support and serve the district's mission. We invest in each student to prepare, challenge, and advance well-educated, resilient, and future-ready citizens. Investing highlight corresponding to finance. So how do we do that? We make sure we have fiscal responsibility. We make sure our budget is balanced. We're healthy fiscally. We have clean audits, and we're transparent to our community and our staff, as well as providing customer service. The team is just absolutely amazing. They have deadlines they have a lot of work to do, but that is their number one priority, is making sure our staff, our students, and community are supported with anything they need, making sure we get materials and supplies. If we need to try to rush a PO, just making sure, we follow that through. So they're absolutely amazing. I'm so excited that I get to work for this team. And so some important I had to keep with the 5 W's, as an accountant, got to be type A. So come visit us anytime. We are in the lower level 12 months a year. Some people call it the basement, but we like the lower level. All right, so there's a lot to look forward to. I'm excited to partner with our departments, our buildings, our SBAAs to provide support, really learning about them still, but very excited. And then there has been a lot of new legislation coming out. Some big things like the state and health insurance, some one-time funds for the career ladder through ARPA, a huge investment in literacy to fund full day K. So I am quickly learning our current budget, and then IASBO has been great. We'll meet there in Boise in a couple of weeks to get more of an update. Next week, or kind of the beginning of the next week, we should hear a little more too from the state finance department. And then it's a little early, but I'm excited to promote a successful levy for 2023, educating our community and advocating for the importance. It's, funds more than 20% of our operating funds, so excited to start that work as well. But thank you. If you have any questions for me, be happy to answer them.
First of all, thanks and welcome to
Thank
Coeur
you.
d'Alene. We're glad to have you. And and thanks for making the connection between dollars and students. So appreciate that.
Yeah.
Questions?
I have a couple. IASBO's Idaho Association of
School
Business
Business.
Offices
Yeah.
or something like that? Okay. On payroll, is everyone paid monthly? I should probably know that after
They
6.5
are, yes.
years. I knew teachers were, but all positions.
All positions.
Is that an education standard?
As an Idaho code, yes.
As an Idaho
Yeah.
code, it has to be paid monthly. I was just wondering if it creates a hardship on those hourly positions, because that's, at those pay, those are, unfortunately, those are month to month, or those are paycheck to paycheck type positions for a lot
Yeah.
of people, and that's tough budgeting on a monthly cycle.
Yeah, it's always been a little tougher, for school districts.
I have a question. Are you paid 10 months, 11 months, the teachers here? How are
Yeah,
they-
so there's 10-month employees, 11-month employees, and 12-month employees, but the way we do payroll is on an annualized basis, so people are getting a check for 12 months. Yeah. Yeah.
Any other questions or anything? I'm excited for March because of the answers and just your presentation on how all the recent legislation will impact our budget, and with all the changes and a lot in the newspaper and a lot in the news right now about what's going on. So excited to see that brought back in March. So
Oh, yeah, definitely.
yeah. Other questions? Terrific. Thank
All right,
you.
thank
Welcome.
you.
All right, moving into some action items, or potential action items this evening. Casey, did you want to say a little bit about choices right now, or you want to wait? About action items and.
I could say it now. I was thinking about it
because-
more in the
'cause each of the
policy
things-
realm. I know in the packet today, there were some great questions about the policies, and I'm going to talk about a couple of those when we get to those, because I was involved with some of them. We've got 3 new board members with us, and really over the last 2 years, we haven't spent a lot of time on policy, because we've been chasing this thing called COVID and had policies around COVID, but not a lot of general policy work for the district. And so, it's the question on any of this policy work we're doing, or really anything we're doing, is not just approve or not approve. There's lots of options. And I just noticed Lynn has a number of those kind of highlighted on our agenda there under action. But we could approve, we could deny, we could modify, or we could postpone, we could table. It's not uncommon to get to a policy and maybe one of us has a hang up with a word or a sentence or something like that, and just to talk about that, and we have the discussion as a board. And really, that's how our policies are going to get better. They're never going to be perfect. We're going to have, we could tweak them forever, I think, and probably will, right? If you could write them once and they'd be perfect, you wouldn't rewrite them again. And we do this constantly. Every month, we're looking at policies over and over again. So that's an important part of that. I think having the conversation and like, wow, I didn't think of it in that way. And there's an example we're going to come across with a word change in a policy that I think with a simple discussion, we could find some agreement on that. And so one of those options is we could amend it here and say, hey, I'd be comfortable approving this policy with, if we edited this sentence to such and such. And we can do that on the fly, or if it's a major edit, then we probably want to wait and maybe put it out for another day, another 30 days of comment or something like that. But, grammatical errors, small word changes, little tweaks is something that it would be totally appropriate for us to be doing here. So I just wanted to highlight that. We didn't get a chance to talk about that in training, but, may be relevant for tonight. So.
Does a small tweak restart the 30-day comment?
I mean, it's really up to us, I think. There's no statutorial requirement to put comment out or, put policy out for 30 days. Most districts in Idaho do not do that. They see them and they approve them on the same night.
Oh, okay.
We're kind of the exception, not the rule in the state of Idaho and even in North Idaho.
Okay.
So it's really up to us. I think the past practice has been if it's a major change, then we would send it back out. But if it's, minor tweaks, then I would say no. Right?
Great. Well, one of the first things we need to do tonight then is to appoint a board liaison and an alternate liaison to the negotiations IBP team. And I want to kind of lift up what that is and kind of explain it. And then notice here down at March 21st, we have a workshop on IBB, which is interest-based bargaining and negotiations, and what does that look like and what does that mean, because it's part of our important work that we do kind of going forward. We'll work with Coeur d'Alene Education Association and the district to help pay our staff and to pay our teachers. So it's important to have a board liaison to work with that. Casey has done that. I helped the last 3 times as well. So Casey, do you want to say anything about that or?
Yeah, I'll just say, I've done it I've done it 7 times now, I believe. This would be my 8th time. And I actually have enjoyed it mostly. It can be a little frustrating at times, but it has changed a lot in the 7 years that I've done it. When I first got here, the first few years, we were positional bargaining, which really means we were at odds with each other, and we would start here and the association would start there, and we would kind of inch towards each other. And there was a lot of theatrics to it, it seemed like to me, and a lot of just wasted time. Somewhere in there, I think about 4 years ago, we switched to the interest-based bargaining method and went through a lot of training with that. And it's really about finding common interest, which usually revolve around students, right? Because that is our common interest. And, how can we settle issues? We're negotiating pay, benefits, work conditions, and feel like there's something else in there. But those are basically the things that we would negotiate with our association. It's only our teachers association that we negotiate with. But historically, and I think recent past practice has been what we've done for one group, we've done for the others. So if we gave a percentage raise to teachers, we typically have done something similar with classified and administrative. Not always. One year we didn't. I can tell you it wasn't very popular when we didn't.
We all get an input into that. So whoever the board liaison is, we all get input into that on the other side. And we'll have meetings, tons of budget meetings kind of leading up to that and afterwards and during the process. So
the process itself, by Idaho code, it is public. It used to not be. It used to be kind of closed door negotiation. They'd come out and vote. But it is all in public. We typically do it in one of the auditoriums or the library or something because we'll get some attendees depending on it. And there's maybe 7 or 8 people that serve kind of on the board team and 7 or 8 on the association team that do that work. It depends on the year, but I would say we start sometime between April and June. It kind of depends on the legislature and how they, how busy or how quickly they get the new funding stuff out to us and new rules. And, you know, the last few years, I think last year we didn't wrap it up till August. Does that sound about right, Aaron? I think it was more because of scheduling issues. We couldn't get together in the summer. Right. Right.
Yeah.
So this last year was a little later. Previously to that, we done it, resolved or ratified kind of late June, early July. I believe my first year on the board, we actually went to arbitration. It wasn't done till September or October. Was not a lot of fun. That's, I think, why we chose to switch our methodology. But it can be a lot of meetings. We typically do like 4-hour work sessions, so we can try to get some work done. 2 hours just isn't enough to really dive into some of the issues and have discussion. And you're meeting as a group, the two groups together, and then you break off and the board team will go meet. We'll caucus is what they call it. So we meet privately and we'll maybe discuss the options that are on the table and those sorts of things. It's, like I said, I enjoy it. It can be a little stressful, but I'd be happy to do it again. I kind of felt like we did that last month. We talked about it when Allie, I think, took SAG, but I'd be happy to do it again and have or serve as an alternate either way, or not.
And I'm happy to serve as an alternate again. There was a lot of learning that kind of went.
As well,
yeah, either way. So
it's one of those that it's a posted meeting, right? It falls under the board. So there's no limit on, we could have multiple board members there, correct? Not in caucus, but they could watch.
Yeah, that's risky.
No? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nope.
And Leslie, if that's something you'd like to do, that's fine as well.
So I'm just, for me, the board liaison and the alternate board liaison would both be, no, just the board liaison.
No, we did too. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But only
only one was a voting.
Only one votes.
So
okay.
Because we do, we vote as
sure. Okay.
As a committee, and then those aren't binding, right? Then the board would have to approve it, and on the CEA side, the association, their membership has to ratify the agreements as well. So we come to agreements, but they're not final agreements until they're board approved and ratified.
Okay.
Yeah, and then we'll meet as a board. We can meet in executive session, and we'll have negotiation updates kind of as we go through. Typically, we'll do one ahead of time, and then kind of throughout the process, giving updates how things are going. And then Scott Mabin also does a kind of a news release after every negotiation session that comes to the board, and it also goes to every district employee, I believe, or at least every certified employee. I'd assume it goes to everybody, summarizing the work we did and kind of what we're working on next.
Okay. Yeah. Do I have a motion or any other discussion? I would encourage us maybe to have Trustee Morrisroe be our board liaison again. There's a lot of especially this year, there's a lot of just changes in legislature and pieces that understanding, I think, would bring a lot of good stuff to that process.
Well, and he seems excited to do it.
He's excited to do it. So
I'm pretty sure I'm the only person who's done it all 7 years.
Yeah,
there's been so much other turnover with
there you go.
With administrative staff. I'd be the only one, I think. And CEA, there's several that have done it for a number of years on the CEA side.
So can I have a motion?
I'll make a motion to appoint Trustee Morris Rowe as the board liaison to the negotiations IBB team for the 21-22 school year.
Second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll make a motion to appoint Leslie Bierke as the alternate board liaison to the negotiations IBB team for the 21-22 school year.
I second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Great. And that'll all come back to us on March 21st, and we'll do a workshop on that. Okay, so terrific. Let's go ahead, and then we're going to look at the high school schedule alignment recommendation. Dr. Hucker, is there anything you'd like to present on this at this point? We saw this last month, and then let's see where we're at this month.
Unless there's additional questions, I think everything's been answered in your packets. We've had a board workshop. There's been lots of information. Assistant Superintendent Barrett provided a plethora of information at the workshop. That all of that information is there. We've highlighted a few, even bullet items, and pulled them out again in the question and answer sections of that the board had for this meeting. So I'll just really probably stand for question. Mrs. Barrett's on Zoom as well, so she's certainly available to help answer any questions as we walk through this, and we'll see what the pleasure of the board is.
Terrific, thank you. Should we have some discussion first and see where folks are at since having had the presentation last month and then time just to digest and dig in? Anyone want to start? And then I know eventually I have some thoughts as well, so yeah, either way, or just
I guess considering what we've heard in the presentations that we've seen, the consideration of the overall feedback that I've seen from staff, principals, students, and families, I don't see strong support to make any change at all. And I'm struggling to see enough positive to overcome the negative impacts of another huge change like this to our students, considering everything that we've been going through with the pandemic and everything else. That maybe it would be better to push this off if it's something that the district is really set on pushing it off until later, like years.
Thanks.
I am very on the fence. I see the organizational arguments, and I understand those. And truthfully, I think if we could dream about a new schedule and like really, I think we could have some excitement if we could come at it from a different way. But right now, I think there is not excitement, and it does feel a little bit like forcing a change when most of the stakeholders don't seem to be interested in a change. So I am very on the fence. I think either way, I see good things either way, and hard things either way. So.
I'm so bad with this thing. Based on everything that I heard at the workshop and then going back and reviewing the packet, I don't see enough evidence to put forth a change like this right now, especially in light of hearing that the staff is burned out. We've had a really rough couple of years. We've had leadership changes, staff changes. I don't feel like this would be a good time to enact another big change, and changing school schedules would be a really big undertaking. So for me personally, I'm for the option one. I want to keep what we have. People seem like that's what they want. There doesn't seem to be a lot of buy-in for any kind of wanting this. So that's where I'm at.
Okay, thank you. I'm on the fence, I guess, at this point between option 1 and 2, kind of reluctantly. And option 1 would be to maintain. Option 2 would be not to decide anything today, but to maybe survey the community and see, is there a desire, is there support for change for the reasons stated. And to me, the reasons are a couple. I think it's just from an operation standpoint of having the district unified in our graduation requirements, our elective requirements, those sorts of things. I think it makes a lot of sense. And, I don't know that there is a perfect schedule. Or I know there's not a perfect schedule, right? And, I don't know. I've struggled with it. I think to me, it's potentially one of the most impactful things we could do for our district, and maybe the hardest thing we could do for our district. Change is hard. I am concerned about elective choice, and I'm concerned about instructional minutes, and those have been my concerns the whole time with the 2 schedules we have. In Lake City, when Caden was presenting Lake City student body, he talked about a class they have in their spring section called College Prep for juniors. And you couldn't even think of doing that at Coeur d'Alene High School with their schedule. It just that would not work based on the core requirements that the students need to meet. Music, he highlighted their music program also. And it is phenomenal. And those students who are big into band or big into choir or any of those music programs they have can take choir every semester and still meet all their graduation requirements for math, science, English, history, and those sorts of things. And that is not an option at Coeur d'Alene High School. So, I have concerns, with that, I guess, election opportunity or elective opportunity. Balancing that out, I have concerns of instructional minutes, primarily in math. We've seen some really strong growth in math from Coeur d'Alene High School, and that doesn't necessarily mean it's minutes, but we've spent a lot of effort in my 6.5 years on the board around high school math particularly, and we've seen some really good growth there that we haven't seen at Lake City, and I couldn't tell you why we haven't seen it there. But I have to wonder, is that part of it, that it's instruction every other day versus every minute or every day? So I don't know. I'm conflicted on this one. I definitely agree to just make a decision and pick one of these tonight would not be a good choice because there isn't community buy-in. We've basically created a winners and losers program here, and there has not, for the most part, ever been any excitement about building a new schedule. It's all been about how do we hold on to what we have. And it's just been a fight for that. So that's why I think at the last meeting I said, if we're going to move forward and if there's community support, it's got to be with a new schedule. And the 2 schedules we have shouldn't be considered. So we get away from that. How do we hold on to what we have instead, and start looking at what can we build, what can we make? So that's where I'm at. I could go either way. I don't know if I've been involved in this so long. I just don't know. I hate to give up on it, I think, but if that's where we're at, that's where we're at. I guess I almost feel like I'd hate to continue with it too.
I hear all of that. And so where my thinking has gone the last few weeks has been back just to students and timing is a huge thing, but what benefits students the most, and especially our students over at CHS, as far as other choices and electives and opportunities that maybe they're not grasping, especially because they're so locked into that schedule. And so the conversation so far with all of us being new and up here hasn't gone back to grad requirements. And so I'm curious if there'd be space that even if we didn't do a full schedule change right away, is there ways to crack it open just a little bit with grad requirements in order to open up some space for students to do and to have a little bit more choice. We heard from SAG tonight just regarding elective choices, and that's a desire as well. You know, instructional minutes is really important to me as well, especially in those core classes, you know, seeing their teachers every day. But the thing is that students who are at CHS in music, they don't get as many options. And if, especially for those students that, you know, that are going on to a 4-year school and are looking at their transcripts really carefully, you know, many students, especially that are going on to college, you know, building that transcript that they want in order to be competitive gets harder when they don't have as many elective choices. So I get worried about that, you know, and the opportunity for students at CHS to pursue art in a deeper way, you know, and pursue some of those other interests that they have. So I'm curious if we could look at grad requirements as part of that, as an in-between step. I want community buy-in fully. I'd like to see come together from a district perspective and at some point here land on something similar to streamline. I think it would help us financially. I think it would, you know, especially as we move and shift in professional development as well, that becomes similar then across the board as well. So those are some of my thoughts. Which leaves us, it sounds slightly conflicted, but because we hear we hear all the sides, and yeah, and that's why it has taken 20 years.
Yeah.
I mean, to land someplace. I mean, it's taken us 20 years. We're still in the same spot. We've been through a lot though the last 2 years, so I want to be sensitive to that.
One thing that I've thought about a lot, because I know one of the things at the workshop they've talked about are with these inequities. And when we look at how well the students are doing on their grades, how well we look at graduation rates, how we look at their go-on rates, they're really pretty comparable with maybe a few little percentage points either way. So that's not going to sway me. We also talk about instructional minutes, and it's like we're just looking at the minutes rather than the quality of the minutes. I do have experience with my own children. I had one in block, one in traditional. They went to another school where there was all traditional. The district my children were in had schools that were both block and traditional schedules, and it worked really well. And a block schedule, I love the block schedule, but it doesn't necessarily translate best for all kids. And we talk a lot about meeting our children where they are. So I think having an opportunity to have both schedules, because some kids are going to do better with the shorter class periods and some will do better with a longer, more deeper dive. So I've given that a lot of thought as well. So just something else to consider.
Trustee Smith?
Yeah.
If I may, just to also make sure we're clear, the challenge that we have is our size and our growth. And so although we have 2 high schools with different schedules, the ability for a student to pick and choose which school they want to go to does not exist. It's based on their address.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so some students wouldn't be able to choose, you know, and so whether or not they, you know, they might like what's being offered over at Lake City, but they can't choose. So
I think, you know, if we were to go option 1 route, to me, I think it would be important that we either look at some graduation requirements and maybe loosening some stuff or making some changes there. You know, some things we've talked about in the past is technology is not a state requirement, but it's a district requirement. And with as much technology as we have embedded in our instruction, our classrooms now, is it required? You know, is it still relevant to have that as a graduation requirement? I know PE's been one that's looked at previously with sports. I think at our workshop we heard maybe that gets a little dicey if all of a sudden sports count as your PE credit, then you have to fully fund the sports, which we don't do. There is some parent finance support on those. So there are some options there. I'd also, maybe this is an issue for Coeur d'Alene High School. Maybe we just think it is. Maybe it's been our issue all the time. But if it is, maybe we give Coeur d'Alene High School some freedom to look at their schedule and do they want to add some more elective time? And maybe they want to stay with the traditional, we want to see our kids every day, which that's what you hear in their survey results from their staff. But maybe they want to go to 7 credits per semester versus 6 and shorten those class times. I don't know, but I guess that's where I'd be. If we're saying no, we're not going to do this, I think we allow maybe each school to do some tweaks. Even Lake City, I know they talked about an anchor day as one of their options. Maybe that's really something they want to do if we're not changing these, because they're not perfect, right? And I think we'd be foolish to say they're perfect schedules. We should consider tweaks if they make improvements for the students.
I do think if we decide at this point that we're not changing, I think it's worth having the graduation requirement consideration, since we do have several classes that we require above state requirements. And are those still, is that still, I mean, the technology credit, for instance, I think that was implemented at a time when using technology was much less integrated into just their normal classroom, so.
Dr. Hawker, any insight or thoughts as well?
I'm really just trying to read the 5 board members tonight. There's been a lot of work. As you said, this has been a 20-year conversation. There's been a lot of work. We are all here for students. We certainly want to make the best decisions for students, and I think that's why tonight, if it's the board's pleasure to just recognize that this is one of the items within the audit that we've just consciously chosen to postpone addressing for however long, that's perfectly supported. The committee has been briefed and well, I should say more than briefed, to make sure that they're aware that their work is to bring back recommendations and information to the board, and the board would make a decision whether an alignment was in the future or not. And so that's really kind of where we're at. I think we're in the middle. It sounds to me like we're kind of in the middle, still a little undecided because it is such a tough decision. I do also know that whatever we do, we can't do it any sooner than 2023. So there's still ample time if it's the pleasure of one of our schools or both of our schools to dream up a calendar that's a schedule that is something that they would support. I think always a board would be eager to hear that and see if that's something that maybe we could do. So I think that sounds to me like the door's still open if you go that direction. Clearly the challenges I think that administration has pointed out and that really resonated with me the most from the parents and the students. It's just as Austin reported tonight, really in his days, nobody's ever even asked him what electives he might want. It's because Coeur d'Alene High hasn't had a chance to hardly take any electives, period, anyway. And so when you look at the number of elective courses and different unique courses that Coeur d'Alene High can offer a student over their 4 years, it's a third of what it is at Lake City High School Crosstown. And that's where the challenge is for me, because I want to provide as much as I can for all students, and I don't want an address to have to determine what you get or not. So I think that's important, but I do believe that if the board so chooses to kind of just not do anything at this moment, then we'll certainly encourage those conversations to take place at the school levels and see what can come from that.
Here's what I'd advocate for tonight, because I've been around this for 3 years. We've been talking about this, I think, and I don't know that I feel like I have a good sense if there's community support for this. I think it depends on who you talk to and really what the options are. I would still be in favor of surveying and seeing if there's community support for this or not. And I think the caveat would have to be we would not use either of the two schedules. That would be for me. If we're not willing to do that, then I think I would support just killing this tonight. But I would advocate that we survey the community. Say, do you support a schedule change, knowing that we're not going to use AB block, we're not going to use 6-period traditional, and see what the results are. And if there's no support for it, then we'd be foolish to continue with it. If there's, maybe there is support there and we're just not hearing it. So.
I think that second part there, which is the include information defining why this is a consideration. We've heard a lot from Lake City. I don't feel like I have a clear picture of really what CHS and their community desires. I really don't. I don't have a clear picture there. Because the few people that I've heard from or whatever, it comes down to the graduation requirements and opening up opportunities for kids. So.
Chair Smith, if I may, would it be okay if we just heard a couple minutes from Assistant Superintendent Barrett, who fortunately was the Coeur d'Alene High School principal here recently, and perhaps get a little take from her just to help you in this process. Mrs. Barrett, are you available to chime in?
I am. I'm home with a cold, so I'm going to stay off camera, but I will be on mic. Yes, what can I help you with this evening? Good evening, Chair Smith and Board Trustees. I've been with you all night here. I think Coeur d'Alene High School is very proud of their test scores. They're very proud of, if I can speak for them, they're very proud of that they believe the daily contact helps with learning and relationships. They were very open to some other options. One being they brought forward the 7-hour modified block, and then the trimester back in the day was their original schedule that they brought forward. So I think there's a little more openness at CHS, and we know that Lake City High School really likes their block. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm going to invite Austin then as well as our SAG rep, and I'd like to hear your thoughts this evening.
Is this my? Yeah. Okay, I got it. I actually go to Coeur d'Alene High School, and I don't know if the new board members are aware of this. I hope the old ones are. We actually did a survey of about 2,000 students a little bit ago about what they wanted. And I could kind of go over a few quick points because I think that'll illustrate what Miss Barrett's talking about. 90% of Lake City kids want their block. They are almost, I hope Miss Clifford won't mind this phrasing, but they're almost fanatically attached to it. They really believe that it is the best option. CHS has about 2/3-ish support for their schedule. So like what Miss Barrett was saying, that we are still proud of our test scores at CHS compared to Lake City. Definitely we're not dying for it, I guess. And we actually asked, students what their qualities they wanted out of a schedule. And funnily enough, at CHS, the number 3 quality they wanted was more elective choices. So to say that CHS only cares about instructional minutes is a bit disingenuous. Now, they do enjoy the contact, and they do overall enjoy their schedule. But I think, and I can send you this if you'd like it or whatever, but I think the evidence kind of clearly shows that there's not really a 100% consensus one way or another. And if I may speak freely about my own opinion, I know Miss Björk, did I get that right? Björky? Got it? I'm trying. You mentioned that you might be afraid of potentially this being too sudden. You mentioned that, this might be too much change at too much time, and this is already a very stressful, couple of years for us, and I get where you're coming from. But as Dr. Hawker pointed out, this is a 2023 minimum. And from my own perspective, it's a little bit sorrowful to hear, because I came in as a freshman hearing about these discussions, and now I'm getting close to graduation, and it looks like we're not that much closer. So there's that old saying that the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. And I understand the hesitation that you might not want to purposely divide the district, but I think it's at this point, you guys have, like Mr. Morrisroe was saying, you've already spent so many years on it. I feel like if I can personally speak, it might be best to just kind of see this one through, one way or another. And again, I voted in the minority of this committee report, but I would rather have you choose the option I didn't want than not make a decision. Because even still, I think, the Lake City schedule is fine. There's nothing wrong with it. I'm willing to admit that on the record. There's nothing wrong with it. It's not my favorite. It's fine.
Thank you, Austin. Appreciate your voice.
So with Libby mentioning the trimester schedule, I know it was taken off the table before, but is that something, if we do take this back to the community again, would that be something we'd be willing to put back on the table?
I think the board nixed trimester last time, and I can tell you for me, my biggest heartburn with trimester is those core math, English, science. You take them 2 out of the 3 trimesters. So let's say as a freshman, you take math in the first and second trimester, and as a sophomore, you take it in the second and third. That's, 200 days or whatever it is between math instruction. Like, is that just too much? So that was my concern. And I couldn't speak to the other board members, but
I think Trustee Morsero's got a good point, and I have spoken to a few folks about remedies for that, and there are several. In fact, again, back to the options of electives and things like that. There's been conversations. I think they're a little too early for me to exactly say what the plan would be, but if the trimester were perhaps a schedule that Coeur d'Alene High or we wanted to pursue, there's avenues to have, if you're in a math class, a math 1 class, you would take that first try, second try, and then you would have an opportunity to take an advanced math class that third try, or perhaps an elective math class of some sort. There's avenues to make it so that your core courses are actually always 3 tries long, so you don't go a whole try without having a course subject. I know that they've talked about that schedule. I think, again, what developed through this last go around was really more of a defense of the current schedules rather than a true exploration of what a potential schedule might be.
in that kind of model, like, sign me up, right? If it's math and construction or consumer finance or, that's kind of a fun math elective type thing that a student can grasp, where there's a real world connection to that, as opposed to algebra and geometry and those sorts of things. I think that's, like, sign me up. But that wasn't the model we looked at before. So I think that's a different conversation.
I do remember that one of the challenges came up just with aligning, but I've heard different things, so someone would have to really answer this for me, but was aligning the NIC schedules, the KTEC schedules, and University of Idaho even. There was just a lot of pieces with that, but it'd be worth it to have them, to have the team bring it back,
From
as
what
a
I understood,
consideration.
those same issues are still a problem with any of the schedule choices that we
and
make,
so-
though. So
Could be.
Okay.
Are we interested in having some more survey work done of the community and being?
How would we
There.
go about surveying? I believe from the workshop, it was mentioned that people came to several meetings and inputted their survey results directly. Would it be sent home? Would we do that same process again? Because if we're going to do the same process, I feel like it's already been done.
Right.
So we've already heard from the 766 respondents that came, staff, community. So would we do something different to garner more community input, or what would we do?
If I may, Mrs. Barrett, would you have a response to that question before I go?
Well, I can build a survey, but the question is, will they come, and how do we balance that throughout our community so it's not heavy, either families or too heavy students or too heavy staff, that it's we include chamber, Rotary, other entities would be my druthers. So we could put a small focus team around this and relook at it.
In my opinion and my observation of how we did it this last time, the surveys that took place at those community forums were really in defense of your current schedule. So you had groups show up sometimes to the forum at Woodland, the forum at Lakes, and the online forum, and vote consistently, 3 times the same group of people for a certain schedule. Like, okay, because you could answer them to support either schedule. And in my opinion, the results were a little skewed because of that. And I don't have proof of that other than what I saw and what I observed at those forums. So I don't know. I think that's always the problem when we survey people is, are they going to respond? How good is it? Do we over-survey people? Scott's probably back there rolling his eyes as we're talking about surveys. Because he'd probably say you over-survey people. Or he has to over-survey people. So.
Now, before with the survey, there was not the option of choosing neither schedule, or was there that option available at that point in time? Or was it just choose one or the other?
I believe that it was the 3 that were presented to us were what were presented at those forums, and kind of a reason, here's the pros and cons of each, and then vote on.
I've just heard that there was quite a bit of community support for like the trimester schedule, whereas it wasn't quite so much for the 3 options that we had available before it was taken off the table.
I don't know that we ever surveyed on trimester, but it wasn't part of the most recent, because the most recent was just the modified block, the 6 bell, and the AB.
We originally, last spring, surveyed, what was on the survey were 2 modified 7-hour blocks and the trimester. And then we went back to the drawing board. The block schedule was reintroduced, and then to fairly represent both sides of town, we added the 6-hour traditional to the second survey. So there were 2 community surveys. One early last year, and one this fall.
So just so I'm clear, the trimester schedule was on the first survey then?
Yes. Along with 2 7-hour modified blocks.
And do you remember off the top of your head, Libby, what the results of that survey was?
Just the community liked the tri. I don't have the data in front of me, but they liked the trimester as opposed to the 7-hour modified block. Then those survey results were brought back to the board, and I believe the board rejected the trimester because of gaps, and I think there was some discussion about AP, which would also be a year-long 3-trimester endeavor for students.
I guess both of the surveys we've done to this point have been with defined options, like these 3. Out of these 3, what do you like the best? And I think we're going to get this. I can't even remember what it's called now. The software program, Thought Exchange. Yes. When does that start?
It's being piloted and tested now, so it's in place. We just have not rolled one out to the community yet.
Because my understanding of it is that's a way to get a more open-ended response rather than just a which of these three do you like kind of question.
That is correct.
If we were going to do another survey, I would like to see it be less, here are some defined things, pick one, and more, is there a scenario you can think of where you think, well, this could really work out? Like, what would it take for you to think, I'm ready to change my schedule? I guess that's what I would want to know from our community. What would it take? What do they need to think, yeah, let's change our schedule? And so that's much harder than just a pick an option kind of survey, but.
One of the things we heard maybe during the workshop was going back and finding out what are the values, what do we value within those schedules. So maybe that would tag along on there. Thoughts?
I would still like to survey. I would like to see administration come back to us with a plan, like, okay, here's the survey, here's what it would look like, and here's how we propose doing it, and that we approve, that. So I'd be willing to make a motion that directs that. If that moves us forward, and I guess we either yay it or nay it, unless someone has another option.
You want to go ahead and make a motion?
Sure. So I'd make a motion to direct the administration to develop a survey to gauge community interest in a schedule change that would result in a new schedule for both high schools, not using their current schedules.
I'd second that motion.
All in favor? Oh, discussion on that? Thanks. Any other discussion on the motion?
We go back to the community. When are we looking at getting input back? When would that push us down the road too? Because we won't be ready by 2023. I just feel like we're just continuing on with something that, with the past two surveys, wasn't something people wanted. So, where are we going to go with this?
Sure. So how much time would you need to kind of develop that plan, do you think? Like, when do you anticipate we could do that?
I think we could roll that out, fairly soon. The idea would be that we could gather that information and have some time to disseminate it. And ultimately speaking, knowing that we are not going to have any sort of schedule change at all this coming fall of 2022, the hard lines are kind of like we set this last year. If we are going to entertain a schedule change, it is best to do that really no later than November. I guess at the very latest you could do it in December and have enough time to staff and plan and create opportunities for kids to enroll in classes and 8th graders to put together their 4-year plans and all of those things. But clearly, the earlier the better. So, I think it could be something that we could survey our community and gauge some preliminary interest. As you already know, we have a lot of data already. Really, the big question, you've heard from SAG, you've heard from the community. It really just boils down to whether aligning the schedules is a priority. And then I believe that building the schedule could be an exciting factor. Generally speaking, students and staff do not ever get an option to build a schedule and do something like that. But really, that's what the community, I think, is waiting for right now. Or are we wanting to align the schedules, or are we not? And if you're not prepared to make that decision today, obviously we need to make it soon. And so we would do our very best to try to get that data for you as soon as possible. We have, I guess I would love to say we could bring you something maybe April-ish. We need a little time to put the survey together. We have not even piloted, really practiced with, we're in the training mode of thought exchange anyway, so we want to send out a product to our community that is good and not embarrassing in any way. So I want to have that down a little bit. So that's going to take us a little bit of time. So I think really as aggressive as I could be would be maybe late this spring, and then you could make a decision whether or not there's enough information there to want to make a schedule change, and then we could spend the time in the summer and early fall putting that schedule together and presenting that schedule to the board for approval by October, November at the latest, and you could make the choice if that's your pleasure. And then maybe, not maybe, but to Trustee Bjerke's point, get this decided by have a goal in-house that no later than October or so we're gonna put this to bed one way or the other.
I like what you said there about alignment and is there value, does the community value that? Is that, do they support schedule alignment? I would say in graduation alignment, that's what the focus should be of the survey. And obviously if they don't and they like that we have variety or it doesn't matter, it's not a high priority, then why go through it, I guess, at that point. So.
I think that would be a good starting point for us. For instance, just an example, if we did go with a trimester, we don't have curriculum for the trimester right now. So the schedule is a lot more than just times and electives. There's a lot that goes into changing a schedule. So I think we would need definitely time to develop a hearty, viable option. And so just understanding the desire in the community, if they want to change the two high school schedules, or align the two high school schedules, that would be a great starting point for us.
Terrific, thank you. So there's a motion on the table. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, thank you. All right, thanks for that discussion. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look then. We've got 4 policies for action this evening, and so we'll go ahead and we'll take a look at each one then individually. Want to just thank the public. We received lots of about 15 different or so public comments throughout each of these different policies. So the first policy then is policy 1500 for regarding board meetings. There was 4 public comments received. Any discussion on that first policy there?
I would just say I appreciated the blue line edits that were added based on the comments. I think the rewrite was just a little confusing. Was there notification or was there not? And so, I know there's always meeting notification, lots of it, but it's nice to see it in the blue there. So
it truly was my attempt at just cleaning up a little bit of language that didn't belong anymore based on the statute, the open meeting law. And so that's where the lines got a little blurry. So thanks to those who pointed out some edits that made it a little more clear.
So to clarify for me, the blue line edit is now what we're voting on.
After the comments that were received, and then the blue line was added as an additional edit.
So that would...
Yes, that's the version.
Okay.
yeah, that's a great point that Leslie and I had a brief conversation on the phone about. But when you're looking at these policies, I know it can get super crazy, like what's new, what isn't. As a general rule, what's in black ink is the existing policy. What's in red is the proposed change or strike-throughs. And then the blue comes in during the public comment period, if there's typos and those sorts of things, or sometimes it's, hey, you blatantly missed, or, we missed something and we added in, or, geez, we didn't think of that. And that's kind of at the administrative level. They're reviewing those and saying, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Let's put this into the policy. So.
All right, is there a motion for Board Policy 1500?
I'd motion to approve Board Policy 1500 as presented now.
I second.
All in favor? Aye. Terrific. Motion passes. Policy 2340, the controversial issues and academic freedom policy. We had 6 public comments received on that. Trustee Morrisor, would you like to kind of present that?
Yeah, I'll just talk about that briefly because I think it's in there as the Morrisroe edits. And so where that came about, Leslie called me today just asking me about that. And so really what happened after months and months of public comment around CRT and, felt like we needed to do something to address that. And so I had reached out to the Idaho School Boards Association to see if they were crafting a policy that took into effect last year was House Bill 377. And I think once it was signed into law, trying to figure out what section it was. I don't see it here in the legal references, I don't think. Well, I'm just trying to figure out what section Idaho code it is, 33 something. Anyhow, so I reached out to Idaho School Boards Association, and they said, yeah, as a matter of fact, we are working on that. We're going to roll out a policy modification to all the school districts, a recommendation. And so I just said, well, before you do that, could you send it to me? Because I'd like to look at it. And this is where they chose to place that section of code, was into this policy. And outside of looking at that language that they were suggesting to modify, I did not look at this policy at all. And I know we've had some suggested edits about subject matter and content and those sorts of things. And that really wasn't the purpose of what I'm suggesting here. I was purely looking at this to insert that language that's in the law and those definitions that are in the law. Because primarily people, whether it's parents or community members, staff members, they go to policy first when they're looking into something. So I felt this had been a topic that's discussed enough across the country and here locally that it should be in policy. And I didn't care for Idaho School Boards Association's language. And we looked at that last month. We looked at their option, I think, in my option, and we chose to move forward with my edits. I just felt they tried to cram too much into, they tried to reduce how many words they were editing there, I think. And they just didn't put enough specific. It got a little wonky in the wording. So most of what I wrote there is pulled right from Idaho Code. Yeah, I did run it back to legal counsel for Idaho School Board, and they were supportive of the change, or said it was in compliance with law.
So if you look at the first 2 paragraphs, there's one in black and then there's new wording in red.
Mm-hmm.
Is it one paragraph, both paragraphs? Because the first one's not crossed out and they seem a bit redundant. So are we keeping both of those paragraphs in there?
That is how it's presented, yes. So you're the first and the second?
Yeah. So the red does not replace the first paragraph. We're going to keep
Correct.
both of them.
And I believe the red there is almost verbatim, if not verbatim, from the actual law.
Oh, is it the law?
Yeah, I believe so. But to be quite honest, I'm not positive on that, but I believe it is. I did this back in October or November.
That. Yeah.
And then I chose to hold it until we had a new board seated.
Any additional questions or comments on that, or do we have a motion? Or
Well, since I wrote it, I like it. So I will make a motion to approve 2340 as presented.
do we have a second?
I'd second it.
All right. All in favor of 2340 as presented?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. 2340 passes then. Let's go ahead and take a look at this next policy, which is the policy 2800, objectives and accreditation standards. There was the words learning styles in there. Any discussion on this policy? Now, I know we had some questions. There was 2 public comments that were received on that. And this was an ISBA summer update and the small corrections that they changed from learning styles, and a small change in wording there.
So the reason was learning styles is not supported by research. Was that the reason for the suggestion?
That's what they presented. Dr. Hucker, do you want to speak to that? I mean, that's what, when I read in.
Yes, and I'll defer to somebody from cabinet. Katie? Yes, okay. She's the expert. Thanks, Katie. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Good evening. Yes, the idea behind learning styles, it was a movement that was proposed, I believe, in the I'll get it wrong, but anyway, the idea of multiple intelligences and learning styles, and in research lately has shown that just doesn't bear fruit in terms of actually moving the needle for learning with students, with kids, and so rather than keep learning styles in there, which is now considered, it's not considered really best practice, they changed it to needs.
So, and I don't want to steal Miss Anderton's thunder, but she had something in the comments today about, tweaking that and adding something to it. So what if it said instructional needs or educational needs? Is there issue with that? So we're not trying to be the be all end all, right? We're not trying to take care of all needs, right? Our primary focus is instructional need or academic needs, or or educational needs. So,
I mean, my personal opinion is that would be fine. I think that meets what we're trying to accomplish there. I don't know that I represent the will of the cabinet or the opinion of everybody, but that would be I think that would generally address what we're talking about.
I just think to appease those that had the concerns about the clarity of needs being there, being able to clarify with an additional descriptive word of educational or academic needs would be helpful.
Yeah, Dr. Hucker, you do get to speak on the behalf of the cabinet. I mean, what do you feel about one of those?
I would agree with Katie that I don't see any big concern with that. If you read the history as to why school boards is recommending this change, you'll see that additional comment, as Katie, I knew she would. She recalled without me having to look it up that it's the way it was learning style that had been legally challenged, and what does learning style really mean, and blah blah blah. So I think this is good to focus on learning. That's what that sentence is. So I think we do anything sort of learning, academic, whatever your word of choice might be. I think right now we could be okay with that, and I see Katie shaking her head yes as well. So I'm going to go with that. I think if you would like to modify or amend this policy with adding whatever your choice is? Do you prefer academic needs? Do you prefer what's your choice? Not to put you on the spot either, but
I think actually more after listening to it, I think educational needs would be most
okay.
direct.
I think we could live with that. Yep. So we'll, if you want to amend that motion.
I don't
So
think
we haven't
have
made a motion yet, right?
So would someone like to make a motion with that change?
With that amendment.
I'll make a motion to make that change on policy, which one was that, 2800.
Should be more specific.
To please add the word, what did you say? Instructional? Educational in front of needs, so it provides clarification.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Ms. Town, do we need a second one to approve that, to approve the whole agenda, or that just takes care of it? Approved as revised. Terrific, thank you. All right, we've got our last policy then, 5820, the evaluation of classified staff, and this policy had to do with our bus drivers. There was no public comment received on that policy, so any
I'll
comments?
make a motion to approve 5820 as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, motion passes. Terrific, those were our policies. Great work. Superintendent, report of information. You've got some introductions and
Yes. If you remember, we pulled off a formal COVID update from the board agenda a little while ago. I guess maybe we're all in hopes that things were getting a whole lot better. And then we went through a really rough spot, so we added it back in. So I'd like to introduce you tonight to your new Director of Health, and that is Valerie Nelson, and she is on Zoom. Valerie, are you there?
Yeah.
Awesome. And she'll give us, she'll give you a brief update on kind of where we're sitting as a district and as a community, and then I'll wrap that up with some student absence or some staff absences and things.
Okay. Thank you, Chair Smith, esteemed members of the board, and Dr. Hawker for having me this evening. As Dr. Hawker said, I'm the new Director of School Health Sciences. So I'm going to give you some information updates on COVID. So first, to go with the 5 northern counties through Panhandle Health. They have 51,643 cases reported. And if you look at their graph on their website, it looks like it's kind of going up and then going back down. But unfortunately, they are behind by 4,525 cases. And then if you look locally at Kootenai Health, they updated their website this morning, which is our local hospital here in Coeur d'Alene. And they currently have 89 COVID-19 patients, and then they have 20 COVID-19 patients who are in the ICU, but 0 pediatric patients. So in regards to our school district, I'm going to pull up a little visual. I can remember how to do this. Share your screen. And then it should come up. So just to kind of give you a run through this graph, one of our very talented nurses created this. So this is the 7-day average of daily incidence rate, a comparison from 2021 to 2022 school year. So on the bottom axis, you'll see week of school, so September through June. And then on the side, it's cases per 100,000. That's why it's a daily incident rate. So this isn't actual numbers. It's based off 100,000 cases. So we'll talk about actual numbers after showing this visualization. But the dotted lines, so the dotted red line is the 20 to 21 staff, and then the dotted blue line is the 20 to 21 students, and then the dotted purple line is the Kootenai County. So since it goes from September to June, as you can see, the 20, 21, and 20 staff and students in Kootenai County kind of stops because we haven't gotten all through the weeks of school. You can see kind of the data from like the blue line of the students and staff from last year, how it kind of went up a little bit, and it went up, the numbers went up a little bit at the beginning of the school year, and then they kind of dropped down, and then right after
Christmas break or holiday break, the numbers shot back up. But we are seeing, good news is we are seeing our peak, and now we're kind of coming back down, which is really good. So based off of actual numbers in the Coeur d'Alene School District, our nurses and staff members, we've had 1,912 cumulative positive cases since after winter break. And that's a combination of students and staff. And I kind of want to like break that down for you guys to show, sorry, I'll stop sharing my screen, to kind of put that into numbers and volumes. So each of our nurses calls the staff member or the student's parents to discuss that when they call in to report that they have a concern or they have a positive COVID, and they walk them through next steps and when they can return to school. So these phone calls generally last about 15 minutes. Sometimes they can take longer, and sometimes it can take a shorter amount of time. So this time that they're spending responding to COVID instructions and answering questions of our families and staff takes up much needed and valuable time, and it takes away from the services that our school nurses provide baseline. So I just want to send a heartfelt thanks to our nurses and also our office staff who've been taking a lot of the phone calls as well and putting it in so that our nurses can respond to these phone calls. So thank you to everybody, all of our staff, students, and everybody who's doing their part to keep our students and staff safe. It was nice to meet you.
All right, thank you, Valerie. And just to recap a little bit in regards to staff absences as well. Last week, we had a pretty tough week where we had upwards of over 100 staff out again. We were able to fill a fair amount of those, but even like last Tuesday, we needed more than 20 substitutes, for instance, and that was following a day on Monday where we didn't really have a lot of absences. So we're thinking, what's going on? It's just really been all over the place. Fortunately, today we were really good. We had about 60 staff out, and we were able to fill all but about 8 of those absences. So dropping down to 60 is much better. And this afternoon, it might have changed. Don't quote me on this, but this afternoon for tomorrow, we're down to only needing 42 absences tomorrow. And again, we have them all filled except for about 8. And so I feel like hopefully, again, based upon the data that Valerie showed you from a community, we have seemed to trend very closely with our community anyway. Maybe we can get down, to that number. I'm guessing, I don't know this off the top of my head, but I haven't asked this for a matter of fact, but I'm guessing in this district with, 700 teachers, 1,500 overall employees, I'm guessing we're always going to have, 30 to 40 staff members out on any given day for various different reasons across all schools. So if we can get back down roughly to these numbers, even anything under 40 or 50, I think it's very doable, and I think our staff then feel a little light at the end of the tunnel, and they can breathe. As you heard from Aaron Hayes today from CEA, our staff, it's been stressful the whole year for every position. Everybody is very intertwined. It's very challenging when you have one absence in one position. Doesn't matter where it is. It seems like there's a trickle effect, and that has an impact across multiple positions throughout the district. But again, I'll reiterate what Trustee Tinbrick said earlier tonight, and just kudos to all of our employees for stepping up and to be a district our size and really have only had to close one middle school for 2 days, a Friday and a Monday for this whole year, is quite an accomplishment. So very, very proud of our team and our staff and everybody for getting us through this far, and I know we're all just hoping, let's hope that graph just keeps dropping further and further.
Great. Any questions? Thank you, Valerie. Good to have you aboard and on the team. Thank you, Dr. Hucker. Let's go ahead and take a look then at procedure 2300P, guidance and counseling. And Trustee Morris, you were involved in this, and this procedure went out. We did receive some comments and a pretty lengthy discussion from the cabinet as well.
Yes.
Yeah. From Mr. Orchard. Hi.
Great job of.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I sat in a group, a committee that looked at this, and this is procedure, so it's not for board approval, and I know that gets a little confusing, but procedure does not require board approval. Policy does. And we looked, when we met as a committee, at the policy, and I think one of the commenters referenced a statement I made last year when this came up and we started talking about this, which was about, I think in one of these meetings I talked about my preference would be some kind of notification to parents if there were three contacts with a student. And I think I primarily focused at the elementary level. And really I went into that committee with kind of the goal of pushing that through. And as we met as a committee and we talked about it and we looked at it, from my standpoint, I backed off a little bit, knowing or recognizing maybe is a better word, that it's pretty cumbersome, and then is it creating burden where it isn't needed. And I'm not going to get into the specifics of the incident that kind of brought this all up and brought some community concern forward. Because that story isn't public and we can't talk about that because of student privacy rights. I think it just got very complicated if there's some sort of mandatory notification process. And I think ultimately we decided and recognized is that it isn't an issue, or it hasn't been an issue on a large scale in our district of counselors working with parents. And I have 4 kids in the district, and I've had lots of contacts with counselors over the year, particularly at elementary years and those sorts of things, because it's behavioral stuff. It's, so-and-so pushed so-and-so on the playground, or they're being mean, and, working through those types of issues that little kids do. And I found, our counselors to be professionals. And ultimately, I think as a committee, that's what we decided, is that these are professional people with master's degrees, with training, and they should, we should hold them to those standards, and that we should expect them to be professionals and to communicate with parents. And if they aren't, then we should address those issues on a personnel basis. But we shouldn't micromanage them on that reporting. So from that point, that's when we started looking at the policy and saying, okay, how can we clean up this policy and make this policy better, or procedure, because we decided not to touch the policy at that point. So how can we look at this procedure and make improvements there to increase really specificity in what are we about? And that's really that's how policy and procedure should work. Policy should be pretty broad. It's, hey, this is where we're heading, and procedures, this is the route we're taking, kind of a type of a thing. So that's the route we took. In my opinion, I view the comments, I think they're kind of equally divided. For a subject like this in a district of our size to only receive 15 comments, I kind of view it as, well, no policy is going to get 100%, right? And so the fact that we didn't have more comments, I see that as people are okay with it. And so that's where I'm at. I think it's far better than the previous procedure.
I think I'm largely supportive of this procedure. I like some of the specific things laid out in it. I also have had contact with school counselors through my children's time in the district, and I found the ones I've worked with to be interested in working with parents. That's their goal. I did have a question. Mr. Orchard, in his comments, said something about the option to opt out of counseling. I'm trying to find it. He said there's opportunity to opt their child out of school counseling services. And so I guess my question is, what does that look like? How is that accomplished?
Mr. Orchard, would you like to answer that question?
Good evening, everybody. Thanks. I'd like to defer my answer to Austin because he'd do a better job. That'd be okay? No? So I'm Keith Orchard, the mental health coordinator, and I've been in the role for 2.5 years and have been in charge or moved up to the coordinator role 6 months ago, which means helping as being a liaison for the counselors about 6 months ago. So I'm still learning a lot. So I don't know if I know the exact answer to your question, but the state law says that, I can't quote it, but that school counselors are important and required in all public schools. And because we are going to put them in all public schools, we will leave the opportunity for parents to opt out of school counseling services. So there is a form, I believe, that parents could sign, and they can say, I do not want to participate in any school counseling services, which would include one-on-one sessions or connections with counselors in any form, and also small group lessons. They would opt out of all those things. And some of the other questions about, these would be like class lessons that counselors do on a normal basis, particularly at the elementary school. And then they run small groups from time to time, and those are always by parent consent and signature for those things.
So for the parent consent, that's a different form. And where would one find the opt-out form? Is that something that's sent home at the beginning of the year in the beginning of the year packet? Where would one find that? Where would a parent find that?
Austin?
Right. I think where it would come into play, and I was just trying to quickly look at the policy, it's either got to be in parental rights, I would think, or
Opt-out is in parental rights?
I'm guessing here, and or it would be opt-out.
Okay.
Or it would be in the instructional materials or something like, you can opt out if.
Well, it'd be nice if we knew where
Right.
it was, just so
Well,
it'd
that's why I'm
be
wondering if
easier
it
to
should be
find.
cross-referenced into this procedure.
Mr. Orchard, just to clarify, so you said there's an opt-out form, but if someone opts out, they can't join a group, or is that then a separate form, get parent permission to be involved in maybe a study skills group or something like that? Would that be something separate?
Typically a study skills group, yeah, if they're going to pull them out or have a grief and loss group or something like that, a friendship group they sometimes have for particular students during lunch. Those are always opt-in and signature or consent by the parent. So I suppose a parent at that time could say, yeah, I think that's a good idea, and sign their student in to participate.
Okay, it might be a good idea if we knew where these forms, so they're easily accessible. Because I didn't know where they were, so, thank you.
I don't know where they are either.
Yeah, Mike's shaking his head. I go, if you haven't found them yet, that's a surprise. Okay. That would be something we should clear up, yeah?
We could
Yeah.
quickly remedy that, and I think we could add it in a couple of places. We could add it as a form to this new procedure.
That would be great.
And then we could add it where appropriate in any other board policy.
Okay.
That it seems to fit.
Okay, thank you.
That's easy. We can fix that.
Okay, easy fix, good.
The one form I see now actually falls under 2340 that we just approved. There's a 2340F, which is a controversial issue, an academic freedom form that allows you to opt out. I'm not sure if that's the right one, but maybe just creating a form under this policy.
Good.
I know from my experience, I don't believe we did it with a form, but we opted a kid out at the elementary level from a counseling program at one time in one of my kids' tenure. So I know we were able to do it. And I don't think we did it with a form. I think we called the principal and said, hey, here's our concern, and we'd like you to find alternative programming for this subject.
Terrific. So Ms. Town, you're going to we're going to link that here. And I think, too, just reminding parents that they can always call the principal as well, to opt out for a lot of things. I mean, yeah, so that would be great. Any other comments or questions for Mr. Orchard?
I just want to say thanks to our school counselors. My kids have gotten a lot of good from school counselors, so I appreciate their work.
I know in a time when mental health is talked about a lot in our community and access, our school counselors are providing just such needed resources. And so thank you for all your work on this and the committee work that went in just to review this. There was a lot of hours that went in and a lot of conversation. So any other questions or comments? This is just out for information, so we don't need to.
Yeah, just our report.
It's just a report.
And can I add that it is Counselor Appreciation Week?
Yeah, I
you all
saw
knew
that
that
today.
So if you're really happy, you can send them in a little email or do something nice. They do work incredibly hard. They dig in and meet needs and spin and run around and help kids in every capacity. Their goal is to build relationships with parents at every turn, and they do the best they're able. And so we really appreciate you all recognizing that and understanding that they, and Casey, what you said, that they are professionals with ethical standards that they will follow and must follow, and that we trust them to do that. And I know that they are very grateful for that. So thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Few information items. We'll be out of here in just 1 minute. Coming up, February 21st to the 22nd, I think there's few of you going. Dr. Hawker as well, doing the ISBA Day on the Hill. So excited for you to bring back information. Some of us had trips and stuff already planned. So yeah. March 7th, we've got a regular board meeting coming up. March 21st, we've got a workshop on IBB and negotiations. April 4th, we've got our next regular board meeting. The April 18th, we've got our workshop topics on bond, capacity, budget, and career ladder. And then May 2nd, our regular board meeting as well. Hearing nothing else, then thanks everyone for hanging with us this evening, and meeting adjourned.